It's a public offering for anybody who wants to come in and talk about these nullification changes. We are in Talking in Stations Discord. You can get there by going to talkinginstations.com/discord. Find us in the live reactions stream. Only appropriate speakers, please. Okay, well, welcome, guys. I'm going to put your names up as you guys talk, as we kind of go through these changes for nullification. It's called The Great Escape from CCP, but it talks about nullification and some of the changes that are going to happen to the immunity to being tackled by interdictor spheres and other things. So take it away, guys. We're just going to have a natural discussion as we look through this stuff and try to figure out what this actually means.
So I'm just going to cover a little bit of background. This stuff is now live on CC, so you can log into CC, get a look at these new modules. And if you fly a ship that is anyway to do with workcore stabilizers or nullification, you should be paying attention because things are about to change. Also, CCP Swift has confirmed that things like the stats are still a bit subject to change in wiggle room, so that they will be taking feedback. They will be listening to feedback, and maybe some of those hard numbers will change, right? They're not set in stone just yet.
So, nullification. We are looking at interceptors, blockade runners, covert ops, deep space transports, luxury yachts, and strategic cruisers or T3 cruisers.
And all frigates.
All frigates.
And all industrials as well.
Well, all industrials. Oh, stealth bombers. Stealth bombers too.
Yeah, stealth
This has consequences because now no longer do fleet interceptor pilots have passive interdiction. Now you got to activate it. Now it's a special module in the low slot. And looking at it, it costs a lot of power, which I seriously hope changes, because with a stiletto, if you have a meta micro warp drive and a Tech 2 warp disruptor, you do not have enough free capacitor to be able to activate this module and warp off. This module costs around 60% of your maximum capacitor on a stiletto. This is bad. This is really bad. I'm curious to why assault damage controls don't have this kind of power usage, but who knows? However, this... Sorry, I'm curious why assault damage controls don't require capacitor to just activate. So if you are in a scepter, you are in a bowl, you are neutered out by, say, a Balgorn or Centaur, who knows what, you are screwed. You got a problem. So this change, it's rough for scepter pilots such as myself. As well as that, it costs it costs a low slot. So I am curious how they're going to sort this out. How are they going to justify making this cost a low slot, a whole load of CPU, an entire one power grid, which, mind you, on scepters is a lot. We're already scraping bottom of the barrel in terms of fittings here, especially really good scepters. So how are they going to justify this? How are they going to fit this on? Are we going to get additional low slots in the interceptor? I'm curious to see.
Also, right now, it's an active module, right? So you're going to have to hit that module. So presumably you're going to have to decloak, or you're going to have to lose your gate cloak. So you're going to align, hit the module, and try and get off before you get insta warped and alpha'd. But it
not at all.
One sec, it's got not just interceptors. I mean, there's other ships as well that would want to use this module. But it has a 10-second active duration right now and a 150 seconds, so 2.5 minute cooldown. So, if you're jumping a wormhole and you're not sure what's on the other side, you might want to cloak up and wait 2.5 minutes before jumping the next wormhole. Otherwise, you won't be nullified.
Not at all. It says right here, we have a string. Can activating gate cloak. If set to 1, the module can be activated under a gate cloak. Does not include any other cloak mod. So you could jump a gate, hold gate cloak, activate the module under gate cloak, and just warp off as per normal. However, you have to deal with the cooldown.
All right, hang on to your cloak and top hat. Show me where that is.
Go ahead and control F on string 3123. Can activating gate cloak. No spaces.
Oh, for God's sakes, give me a link. Carry on.
Okay, so I was looking, are you on Hobo Leaks?
Oh yeah, I am on Hobo Leaks. I will put the Hobo
Leaks
in the public voice chat.
I was only looking on in-game on CC, and there's no indication that is the behavior on CC, so that's interesting.
That is a string that exists.
No, absolutely brilliant. So I'm actually happy with that. That's a lot better than having to decloak before having to hit this module.
Yeah,
They
I
should
am.
have some indication of that in the game, though, because that's going to cause some confusion.
I
However,
wonder the fitting space for the stabilizers.
we're going on to that in a moment. However, if you are used to flying the old Crow, Stiletto, Malediction, Ares, you will get, instead of the interdiction nullification bonus of the past, you'll get 50% reduction in the nullifier reactivation delay, and the max lock range penalty is reduced by 50%, and you get 100% bonus to the duration. So instead of it taking 150 seconds to react, wait, what? Okay, instead of taking 150 seconds, it will be 75 seconds, and the duration, instead of it being 12 seconds, this is the restrained one I'm reading, it will be 24 seconds. So if you are flying a fleet interceptor, you get a bunch of bonuses to compensate. However, this does not make it anywhere close as how it used to be. Sad days.
Bridge systems might be a problem because you activate it right in the gate cloak, and then if you have a longer warp, you're going to get past the. If you manage to warp to the next gate in 15 seconds, you might be in problems, and otherwise you can just keep going as you used to.
I am reading right here, it requires a power grid usage of 1. That is a lot, because my interceptor right now has a power grid of 0 spare. Oh, CPU usage of 38. Bad news. My interceptor's CPU spare, spare CPU is 3. So, this is a problem if I want to fit this on my interceptor. We're already scraping bottom of the barrel as it is. One of the smallest fitting spaces.
What do you think, Rich? Do you think we have to just say no to the nullification and fight it out like normal interceptor pilots or something?
Absolutely not. I am not. I am not spare. Absolutely not. Definitely not. However, this has an interesting consequence. What happens when you give a malediction 5 low slots if they are to compensate for the fact that this takes up a whole low slot? They're going to give extra low slots to the scepters. What's going to happen when the malediction rolls out with 5 low slots? Now you can fit AAA coating, and now the malediction's at 10,000 effective health. I really hope they thought this through. I really hope that there's.
Of course they. Of course
this is
they.
going to be subject to change.
Of course they.
And I am certainly not happy about the fact it takes. Let's see the power grid. Let's see, the capacitor usage is 150 on the T2 module.
Yeah, I just dropped something here in public voice. It's from CC.
Oh, that's bad.
Oh, that graph's perfect.
So that's the new modules, and then it changes to the usual warp core stabilizers we're all used to.
But this
So
does mean
this is a good thing to see, because you can either be interdiction nullified or have warp core strength.
You can't have drones anymore, too. No ECM drones to try and get away.
But the interdiction nullifier can only be fit to those ships. This does mean the blockade runner is now interdiction nullified, and so is the DST.
Does this replace the old scan resolution negative? Like, do you have the passive one anymore?
So these effects, I think, they happen to you whether the module's active or not. Isn't that right, Rich?
The warp core stabilizer thing. Let me double check.
I believe the behavior is that whether you activate it or not, you have that negative.
It seems like it. So just by having these warp core stabilizers on, you're now screwed out of 50 megabits of drone bandwidth, and you are going to still get those reductions. You only get the warp scramble strength when you activate the module.
And it's it's now so like the warp core stabilizer gives you 3, say, points, right? But you can only fit 1.
I
Correct.
have. Wow.
Yeah, you can only fit 1 of these. You can't fit 2 and get 6 warp core points.
So if you
You
can get to -7, you can catch a DST, but then it's not interdiction nullified.
Says right here, max modules of this group allowed 1. So you can only fit
Yeah.
1 warp core stabilizer module of any kind. Oh, this is brilliant.
Yeah,
Okay, this change is good. No more.
So if you're hunting, as long as you have like 2 scrams or a like faction and a point, a faction scram and a point, you can stop someone, right?
Correct. The big problem were the warp core stabilized Ishtars, and now they are no longer a problem because with a faction point and any point and a faction scram, 3+1, you should be able to stop it from warping off now. Whereas before, you needed something like 2 faction scrams to hold it down, and that was impossible. Well, difficult, really.
Yep.
Well, that's good. However, with DSTs, I don't think DSTs lost their innate warp core bonus, nor did Ventures.
Hey guys, make sure you're looking at our stream on Twitch so that you can see some of the questions and comments coming through.
Yeah, I'll just check those venture stuff on CC for you now. If someone wants to take some questions from the stream.
Hold up.
Ventures still have that ability.
It appears that, at least on Hobo Leaks, the malediction has not been changed at all. I am fairly certain that's an error. I'm hoping they correct that.
You want
There's
something?
another. Go on, Gus. I was going to mention there's another potential oversight in that the special flag of can be used while cloaked has not been applied. So
Yeah.
while they've put in that ability somewhere in the code, it would seem it's not actually active and doesn't function yet on CC.
Well, as with things on CC, all things are subject to change. This could not be implemented at all. This could also be a joke, but who knows? We're looking to
No,
see
it's
what
definitely
happens.
not a joke.
I hope the can activate and gate cloak is added in because that is very important.
Yeah,
Let's,
I completely agree.
What are we looking at here with this graphic on this inventory ship?
That's what it looks like when you've got the nullification running. You get this weird pulsing zoom effect. But there you go. Paradox has just confirmed the attribute is just not ready yet. It'll be in the next update.
Okay.
So that will mean, so just to reiterate, if you jump a gate and you have your gate cloak, you'll be able to activate it before you decloak and warp away. But so far, if you are under the effects of a covert ops cloak, you would have to uncloak to activate it.
That does seem to be the implication, yeah.
Correct. So theoretically speaking, if you're in, say, a covert ops ship, you jumped a gate, you're in a bubble, you will be able to activate it, presumably keeping gate cloak, and then you can immediately initiate warp, bypassing the warp bubble, and activate cloak before they lock you. And that should work.
Yeah. So that kind of normal travel behavior is the same. But let's say you are running sites in a wormhole in a Stratios, and a scepter, or not a scepter, a saber comes in and throws up a bubble. You would want to hit that button before you warp off and cloak. If you cloak first, you're not going to be able to activate that module, and then you're going to have to burn out the bubble and warp away.
You know what else this catches really bad? This is going to make it very difficult to avoid drag bubbles, because isn't it your destination set when you launch warp, and you won't even know that you need to activate the module before you actually click warp?
And that's why you always activate it.
However, there is a problem with always activating it, because unless you are in one of the special ships that has the bonus to the duration and reduction of the cooldown, you're going to face a problem. You're going to activate it thinking there could be a drag bubble or something. You jump the gate, and now you still have the cooldown to deal with once you're on the other side. And during that time, I don't think the gate cloak is long enough to cover that cooldown.
Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely isn't.
With an interceptor, you might be able to get lucky because of their bonuses, and it's 75 seconds instead of 150. So you might be able to hold on gate cloak just enough to peel out the cooldown and then
Well, you have
leave.
to you have your 2-second align time. You have your 3 seconds to get to maximum warp. Your deceleration seconds. So unless the system is tiny in a scepter, you're fine. So you can scout for the DST with a scepter.
But yes, for all other ships, if you mistime your interdiction or you waste it and you jump and you don't have enough gate cloaks for it to come off cooldown, you're in a heap of trouble.
And again, you can only equip one of these at a time, right?
I'm going
Yeah,
to check
correct.
that now.
No,
on
yeah, it's only
PC.
one.
Max modules of this group allowed 1.
If
So-
they prevent warp core stabilizers if you have the other one. So let's check if that's the case.
Oh no, so I think those are going to count as 2 different modules. So you'll be able to have one warp core stabilizer module and one interdiction nullifier module.
CCP Paradox is in the audience. He's actually one of the developers behind some of these changes. And he says, I can't remember, to be honest. The change is on singularity, so someone listening can verify this verify for us real quick. I think he's talking about the cooldown 2 minutes. Not sure what he's referring to.
So
Here.
they're wondering if a session change will clear the cooldown. Stuff like
Well, the cooldown will be set,
unlocking and
yeah.
things like that.
Can somebody-
Given
I've just
Somebody check that. Is somebody on that?
I'm
Just
going
doing
to
it.
do that.
5 seconds, and then you'll know the
All right,
answer because
thank
I'm undocking now.
given cloak mechanics and assault damage control mechanics not resetting on the session change, I would presume
It
that
does
doesn't.
persist.
So that you still have to deal with the cooldown.
Yep, so I activated it, the cooldown began, I docked, and then I undocked, and the cooldown is still there. And I've just streamed the wrong thing, hold on. There we go.
So let me clarify. Can you fit an interdiction nullifier and a warp core stabilizer?
Don't know. Find
Yes,
out, shall
you
we?
can on a DST.
On a DST, can you check with the other things, please, Spud? That's a long
You see my
cooldown.
the cooldown's still going, and I've been docked and undocked, and it's not changed it at all.
Oh.
Does the
That's a
What did you want to
combination of
check?
the module?
Can you
per-
fit? Can you fit both a warp core stabilizer and a
yes, on any ship you can.
on any ship you can? Okay.
Mhm.
But you can't do more than one warp core stab anymore.
The interdiction nullification change, especially with the way it cripples interceptors, it concerns me. And I'm not too sure how they're going to compensate for the fact that an interceptor has to sacrifice quite a lot of fitting space and an entire low slot just to have the interdiction nullifier modification. I'm curious if
And-
they're going to change interceptors to surround this change.
Also, now, to be honest, the nullification subsystem is completely useless, right?
No, it still
Because-
allows you to travel. For
Mm.
the 10 out of 10 runners, it's good enough, but hunting with it, you want to refit before you engage anybody.
No, what I'm saying is, because you can only be nullified on one side of a gate if both sides of the gate are bubbled, right?
You
You
have
can't-
to
you
under,
can't-
you have to understand you are activating that thing before you warp to the gate, right?
Mhm.
So while you're in warp, that's 15 seconds will pass. Then you wait out your gate cloak. So on 59 seconds of the gate immunity, you activate it again and you warp off.
Okay.
No, my concern is where you have, say, a dead end system where the entrance is bubbled. So normally an interceptor would bypass that entrance, go on the other side, which is also bubbled, and then they'd immediately be able to start hunting. In this case, if you bypass the entrance with the interdiction nullification and you jump to the other side, the cooldown would still be there, and you cannot bypass a second set of bubbles, which makes hunting more difficult.
You could, but you can't lock things anywhere near as fast as you could.
There's no other way to say it, but this is a nerf. This is crippling people who use interceptors now, especially people who use interceptors to hunt. People who use interceptors to travel can always warp to perches and such, but people who use interceptors to hunt and in combat will massively suffer because of this change.
Warping to a
And
perch
blobs T3s are just useless now for hunting.
correct.
I do not like this change.
The thing is, with using a perch, you are basically having a problem here, because if you go from a perch, you get interdiction and immunity there. Even with the roll bonus, you won't be able to escape the next set of bubbles. So you want to go from the perch to a faraway spot in the system, activate your module, and then warp to the gate. Because otherwise, you will run out of the timer in an interceptor.
This only hunts. This only hunts hunters. So it hurts hunters.
Yeah, but the thing is, the
Yeah.
hunters just need to bring 4 points right for everything except for DST, which needs.
No, but you can't get to the new stuff is the problem. You
Yeah,
can't get.
It does
You
make
can't
hunting
actually
a lot
get
harder.
there. You can still catch them with the warp core stabs. The warp core stabs aren't the issue. The issue is getting to where you want to go.
Doesn't it also sort of speak to the fact that T3s are about to get changed, because that effectively makes about like 1/9 of each, like a whole subsystem is basically worthless. Doesn't this mean that they're probably going to redo the like
I mean-
subsystems?
No,
I mean,
sorry, just
T3 is
Rattati said recently in an interview that they would like to look at touching T3s, but it's not coming soon.
Yeah, T3s are just like insta gibbs, right? Because you combine the industry changes, now all the caps require the gas that went into T3 production. So T3s are going to like double in price or whatever because no one's going to produce them, and their materials are going to skyrocket in price. Now you have this, so one of the travel subsystems is completely useless. Like,
Yeah, I definitely think this speaks towards changes coming for T3s. I think that that's a big indicator, at least in my opinion.
and you still lose SP when you die. Like, there's
That's interesting.
literally no reason to use T3s in the majority of cases anymore.
It doesn't break tether, if that's interesting to anyone.
There's some questions in chat. If you guys could look at those and answer them.
Which ones?
I agree that gate camp is probably going to be better with hunting being a little worse. I mean, the only way around this, I think, is going to be with like the micro warp drive bonus interceptors. Maybe you can crash fast enough, but that's also going to like give a little bit of strength to the gate camp style play or quick lock.
I can answer this because I have both been the main hunter and scepter pilot, and also have done gate camping in Torino's EC TAC P. This cripples anybody who's looking to hunt. If you're looking to jump bubbles and use your quick reaction times and all these things to slip in and out and hunt and such, no, you're crippled here. You're going to have a problem. If you're going to sit there and camp a bubble, camp a gate, and wait for unsuspecting people who don't have the right setup and don't know the area, you'll get a lot of benefit. So I think I'll be spending a lot more time gate camping than hunting because of this change.
Yeah, I second that. As someone who hunts as well, and particularly in T3 cruisers, this is just I'm not even going to bother.
What was this intended to solve? I think this was intended to solve the problem where people could just bypass any kind of blockade with a interceptor that could instantly warp. People got upset about this because it would allow people to.
There's implications in Sov warfare. There's piranha fleets from NC Dot. I think there's different versions of that, which are basically interceptor fleets that, when you put enough people together in an interceptor fleet, they can wall up some things, so they actually do damage, and they can move anywhere. the counter to that, theoretically, which was kind of interesting, was put together by Horde with the, what are they called?
The
Skybreakers.
electrocutor or whatever.
Yeah, the Skybreakers, I think, were these electrical.
Love that idea.
Yeah, and that wiped out a bunch of Ares a few months ago. So that was kind of interesting, but there really was no answer to a bunch of interceptors flying through everywhere unimpeded. So at least for sovereign warfare, there was implications.
In wormhole warfare, this became a problem where as soon as somebody failed to obtain hull control in any way, as long as a scepter could get through, that would mean reinforcements. It doesn't matter just how many ships or bubbles and everything they had set up. Just a moment of a slip up would allow an interceptor to slip through the wormhole and allow them to either scout out where the hole led to or get an interceptor
That
into the
isn't
wormhole.
changed. That isn't changed at all.
I'm concerned
tell
about
me-
PI may become more expensive because I think a lot of people in haulers were using warp core stabilizers to get past anybody in low sec to pick up their PI. What do you
They
guys think?
still can, and they now are interdictional nullified, so they can you need more than just a saber to catch them,
But
because then you use both modules.
isn't the reaction time longer though? So you can't use it on the way out and the way in?
So I think what you do in that case is you would jump into a system, warp to a safe, activate a Tech 1 cloak, wait 2 minutes, and then go again. Makes traveling longer, but you're still quite safe with
I like
the
that.
2 modules, and like just use a Tech 1 cloak, have a safe near each gate.
To
You
those
can
on the
descan.
panel,
So it's
to
a lot
those
more
on-
active, it sounds like.
Yes, yeah, I think
those
that.
on-
But it's way more possible now to use the T1 haulers or the deep space transports to get stuff to Nilsac and out of it without using a jump freighter, because you can, if you scout yourself well, get through a gate camp.
So this sounds like it hurts hunters more so than logistics.
Oh yeah. To
I
those
think
on the
this
panel,
does help. This does help wormhole like eviction style players though, because if you bubble up both sides of that small wormhole, I mean, I don't know. Do the
Doesn't matter.
interdictors fit through this small one?
Yes, they fit fine. No, the bigger issue for that in that specific case is going to be stealth bombers.
Wait a minute, Oren. I was present in the Beyond the Breach eviction where with Inner Hell against yourself and Laserhawks. The way we flooded in backup, the outside of the hull was bubbled, the inside of the hull was bubbled. We just walked interceptors to the hull, jumped through, docked up at the Citadel. In this case, if we activated the module to get to the wormhole, we might not be able to activate the module once
Yeah.
we got inside. So that would
Yep,
mean
that's what I'm saying is that null covert ops completely make that pointless, right?
we
Because
don't we didn't
because
use covert
you
ops.
yeah, but now you can. So what you do is you have the covert ops on the one side, right? You just cloak and warp to the wormhole from a random direction, right? You're cloaked, you go to the hole, you can jump through, and you're nullified on the other side. Easy win.
Well, well, there is one good thing is passive interdiction. You can now use a shuttle, and a shuttle is already insta warp. So instead of travel scepters, you just use a travel shuttle. So the whole thing of trying to bypass a blockade with it's you're still going to get past the gate if you use a travel shuttle. So this, yeah, it only hurts hunters. To those on the panel, the new ratting meta will be putting mass amounts of gate bubbles on the system gate and adjacent. Yeah, pretty much. If you get, say, a dead end system or a system with one special gate, yeah, you have to go through. If you bubble both sides, this will massively cripple any hunter. They'll have to activate the module to get to the gate quicker, and they'll have to activate the module on the other side. It's going to delay their hunting by, I'd say, 2 minutes. That is a long time in hunting time.
Just want to point out how much activity is going on in TIS Discord. The Eve discussion channel is just raining with comments and stats being thrown back and forth.
This affects a lot of things.
So can I just get like Oren specifically, like one bad thing, maybe one good thing for wormholes in these changes? So like T3s.
I'm trying to
get
think of a
ruined.
good thing.
Um,
Eviction defense, like I said, becomes easier, right? Because you can now stream in covert ops, right? You could get a covert ops to be like 15k EHP. That's not going to die to smart bombs. It's not going to die to Stormbringers. It's not going to die to whatever else, right? So
okay, so
covert ops are your way in, I guess.
covert ops and stealth bombers to get into a wormhole now.
Long list of bad things.
Yeah. So like T3 cruisers, again, a bit of a hit to them. What else?
Thanks for having me on today, guys. I'm sorry I got to dip out and go to work, but I did want to give a quick shout out to Ronald McDonald. It's his birthday today, so happy birthday.
Right. And I mean, even if you don't want to guarantee your way in, right, to a specific wormhole through Frickle, you just keep throwing shuttles at it. It's what 30k is. Who cares? And like, I think the biggest problem with this is going to be coming out of battleships, right? Nullified, escape bay frigates.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But that's good, right? That
Okay,
means
okay,
like
'cause
you
look-
can, as a battleship pilot, you can now fit a reasonable
Why is
set
that a good
of
thing?
implants. Because people might use implants. So if you catch the dude, you get a nice shiny pod as well, because now they have a chance to get a pod out instead of
The,
always losing it.
the whole point of having implants is you are risking dying in said implants. Okay, but this is worse, is because if you look at it on CC, the nullification applies to all frigates. You can put it on any frigate hull.
Oh no, this is bad. This is really bad.
Uh-huh.
Because, well, it's good for if you're going to try and save your pod, but this is really bad if somebody wants to claim the full bounty. They want to kill the guy and the ship and the pod. No chance now, because now they could just activate warp core stabilizer and nullification, warp off, saving the pod, game over.
Going back to wormhole evictions, like this is just going to create a situation where 90% of eviction defense fleets are battleships, right? So they have
Yeah.
a frigate escape bay. So now you cannot kill the defenders. You have no reasonable way to kill a defender because you can get an insta warping nullified frigate, Tech 1.
That's a
Like-
really good point. Sorry. So just for people who aren't aware, when you're fighting in a wormhole, you want to catch a guy, you want to kill his ship, but more specifically, you want to blow up his pod and get him out of the wormhole. So he's one less person to deal with, thereby reducing the number of defenders. That's how evictions work. Otherwise, it's almost impossible to evict someone if they can keep their men in the wormhole, right?
Exactly. And due to this, they're just not going to get potted out unless you're like brawling at 0 with several smart bombing battleships, and even then you're not in range of all of the battleships, so if something dies, like, not guaranteed you're going to get the smart bombs off, or that the smart bombs will kill the frigate. Say you put on like Condor. Let's see if you can get an insta warping Condor with the nullification subsystem. I'm sure you can.
I don't know if we have talked about this, but right now, if you fit a micro warp drive, micro jump drive, that thing is more valuable right now than before, because that gives you rent 1 point for warp core stabs, and plus it doesn't have the negative bonus for scan resolution.
So there's the thing though, is with micro jump drives, a scram will still shut off a micro jump drive even if you can still warp off.
Yeah, so that's a scram, but let's say if you just take a chance, right, it's better than nothing right now, right? If you don't want to fit one of the new mods on, then let's say if you're a battle cruiser or a battleship, then you can fit a micro jump drive instead of those.
Instead of what, the nullification? I'm not sure what you mean.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure what you're trying to say.
But well, yeah, bad change. I don't like this at all, because if it were to try and stop people traveling, they've added interdiction nullified shuttles, which are already 1.5 second a line. So what's the point of that? If it were to stop people from doing piranha fleets, I guess. But this, all it does is screws over people who are hunting. I don't like it at all.
I would have said just nerf the raw DPS of the nullified interceptors, right? Just make it so that they do like garbage damage.
I never really had a problem with nullified interceptors. They're cheaper, they're more expensive than caracals, and they die to rapid lights. It's
May I offer a light-hearted distraction briefly?
Yes,
If you're
please.
watching the game stream, I am currently at the construction site of the Losec Gate to Stain.
Heck yeah.
oh hell.
Someone just asked there, can he put a null on his Astero? Yes. So like
Yes, you can.
any frigate, bring it up
God,
there.
Gate to
maybe.
Stain.
All right, so you can get an insta-warping nullified magnates.
Yes, yeah. So if you're exploring, a lot of the negatives for the ships, like your drone bandwidth, your scanners, that's probably not going to matter that much to you. So if you're like out there exploring, doing your data relic sites in dangerous space, and you're in a Tech 1 frigate, you will take a small hit in the time it takes you to like complete a site, but you definitely have a big, massive GTFO button.
Sorry, I'm still thinking about the battleship escape bay, just like in general.
It's
Yeah, that's I don't know. That's crazy now. Like they
this
specifically had limits on the frigate escape ace, so you couldn't do that, right? You couldn't fit
Interceptors.
before it was only Tech 1. It was Tech 1 frigates.
now the venture really can't be tackled now, because now you get 3+2. That's a 5 core stab strength. That's
Can you do a nullified venture?
Yes.
Is it a base frigate? Oh,
Yes.
amazing.
You could
Is it a
wait.
low slot mod or is it?
Yeah, but you only have one low slot, so you're either
What
an
slot is it?
interdiction nullified or you're warp core stabbed.
I think nullified is the way to go.
Oh yeah.
Saber lands on you. You just moonwalk out.
Oh man, this is
Abby, weren't we just having a discussion about ventures being
So
difficult content?
the other night when we were having our discussion and then Discord ate itself and died, I was really annoyed we didn't get to finish our conversation. Now we need to have a whole different conversation. They completely like, oh my god! I was thinking about you today when this came up. I'm glad you jumped in.
Yeah, you can fit and you can activate it on a venture. Just did it on CC.
Oh god,
Amazing.
oh no. Now, okay, enough of the warp core stabilizers. Katia, I recall you do a lot of traveling. If you're traveling with this, you're good. You're gonna love these changes. Me and a lot of people here who are hunters, we're all hating this. Some of us who fly interceptors in combat are also not big fans of this.
Okay.
We dislike this as well.
So quick question: does anyone have any issues with the warp core changes? Because I don't.
Yeah, I'm okay with them.
Yeah, I think they're pretty good. I am curious about only fitting one. So this now maxes out your ship at
3.
yeah.
So yeah, as we were saying before, you need 2 scrams or like a faction scram and a point to catch something, unless it's a venture, which is now ridiculous. But
2 faction scrams, yeah.
Yeah. But no, you need more than 2 faction scrams with a
No,
2 faction.
Five on a venture.
Yeah, sorry, so 2 faction scrams. But yeah, so the warp core stabilizer changes are something that should have happened a long time ago. They're great, right?
Okay.
Oh yeah,
I
absolutely.
kind of felt the same way that they seem pretty good. I like them.
I am sick and tired of seeing Ishtars that are 1 stabbed, 2 stabbed, 3 stabbed, 4 stabbed. I've even seen 5 stabbed Ishtars. I am so sick and I've killed them, by the way. That's what I mean by I've seen them. I'm so
dude in
glad
the
to see
chat's
these
right.
changes.
Malus Navy is now going to be pretty spicy.
That's a gate to
Yeah, but
Stain.
there's a
Hold
problem
on.
where
No.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Carry on.
Wait, so right now you only use 1 slot, but that 1 slot, if you activate it, then you're gonna get 3 warp core stabs right away, right?
No.
For a certain period of time.
You get
Or is it
you
max you can fit 3?
You can only fit 1 of these modules, and as soon as you activate it as an active module, you'll get that additional 3 strength.
Okay.
However, so this is interesting
So
because
only one of them can be fitted. to
only
it.
one module can be fitted. So instead of fitting 3 Walker stabs, to get 3 strength passively, you fit 1, and you have to activate it to get that 3 strength.
But the negatives are always there.
The negatives
Yeah.
seem to be always there. Right
Yeah.
now, the Ishtar with one of these modules fitted will now only have the damage output of a Vexor. It takes off 50 drone megabits.
So
Now,
that's from 125 down to 75.
Yeah, which is the exact same as a Vexor. Now, elephant in the room. Will this stop bots?
No, people
No.
will just
No.
take the hit and they'll earn 50 or a third less money, right?
They'll just reprogram the bots to activate the damn module. So it doesn't really fit bots. Could it improve bot detection? Possibly.
I think the thing I'm terrified most of is now the bomber fleet's coming in. Like, what do you do? They're nullified.
Nullified is covered up.
However, if you choose to still use Warcore Stabilizers, shame on you. You just for even fitting it, you will get the reduced drone bandwidth such.
Currently, currently it's a bit bugged because you get 62.5 drone bandwidth if you fit a Worker Stab Tech 2 on an Ishtar.
Huh.
Someone asked there, someone tackles me and I activate the warp core. Do I have to wait for the next cycle or does it take effect right away? It's going to take effect right away as you hit the module. So I presume if you're locked, it's just going to break that. You're going to lose the scram and you're going to warp off.
But
Someone said there you lose DPS and targeting range for a bomber. You do, but that's not going to make a difference. I mean, if you're talking about bombing bombs, it's still going to be able to bomb, and even with torps and stuff, you're still going to be. I mean, your range will go from 100 to something a bit lower. It's still going to be
It's 50.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, you could still
Yeah.
fit in a sensor booster and do fine.
Yeah. A lot of these negatives can be negated with sensor boosters and scripts. So like a bomber is still. This isn't going to ruin bombers. Bombers are actually way scarier.
All right, so
All right.
let's picture this. So you are in a Ishtar ratting. Somebody goes up to you and points you, wants a strength. You align to your citadel. You try to warp. You cannot warp. You activate the warp core stabilizer module for the next 12 seconds. I'm seeing. You can now go ahead and warp off.
Abby,
As soon as you activate it.
single SIBO bomber still gets 65-kilometer lock range with the nullies.
Yeah, I think 65. That seems perfectly reasonable to me. I mean,
However,
that's
it does not.
Go on,
It doesn't break the point. So as soon as you activate it, technically you're still pointed. You can warp off as long as the point strength doesn't go over your warp core strength during that duration. So yeah, at that point you are free to go.
Okay, so for the nullification, can those only be fitted for frigates, or can they fit on
No.
any ships?
There's a list of items the ship will. There's a list of ships the item will fit to.
Interceptors, blockade runners, deep space transport, strategic cruiser, luxury yacht, covert ops, frigate, industrial, stealth bomber, and presumably the. Actually, no, not presumably but yeah, those.
Overall, nullification changes just sound off. Good, bad.
Bad.
Terrible.
If you want to get away and you don't want to get caught and killed, they're probably good for you. If you're trying to catch and kill something, you probably hate these changes. I think it's a good summation. And again, they've crapped on T3 cruisers.
Here's my question. This is reverting back to what it was before. Why is it so terrible?
It gives way more defensive capability to the people being hunted. It massively cripples the hunters who have already been successively crippled over the last decade. So there's even
Oh yeah,
it's
because
even
blackout
more
really
difficult.
crippled them.
No, not the blackout. The say the
Well,
Citadel.
it's selective thinking, but this goes
Yeah.
back to what it was like before interceptors got the magic power to fly through bubbles. Why is that such a bad thing to go back to gate camporama? How it used to be before.
Because
So it
in the
allows-
past, because in the past you did not have citadels in every system for people to be safe under, and now you do. And now for you to hunt somebody before they land on a citadel, your window of opportunity is very, very small. And if they were to put bubbles on both sides of the gates, they now have a window of the moment you enter local, a few seconds, to over a minute worth of window as soon as they spot you. That is a huge window they can work with. That is not good for hunters. It makes it
I've
very,
got
very difficult.
2 questions. You said industrial ships. Does that mean you can put it on an orca and a rockpool?
No.
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 No. So
We're
like
talking
the industrial transport ships like a Neros or a Noctis, a Sigil, Ideron Mark V, Badger, Bestower, Epithal, these kind of ships.
So a porpoise?
Yeah, we have
No,
it on,
not a porpoise.
We have it
Not a
on screen
porpoise.
now. It's if you look here, it gives you a list of the 5 types of ships.
Okay, and the
Yeah,
other one
but a
is
Noctis. It's possible to fit it on a Noctis because that also counts as an industrial ship.
It's not listed there, but
No, a
So-
Noctis is listed there. Yeah, you can fit it, the
Oh,
interdiction
amazing.
nullifier on a Noctis. So Noctis salvaging and wormholes and stuff, you can. That's a bit safer, right? If you're cleaning up sites.
the other question I got is if you're in a travel scepter and you're gating around Delve, do you have to hit activate every system you jump through on this thing?
Yes, it has a
Yeah.
10-second activation and it is a 2.5-minute cooldown. Notwithstanding, some ships have a bonus for it.
So use it on the way
your
in or on the way
travel
out.
scepter's you're gonna need to know the bubbles in that system for your travel scepter, basically.
Or you cloak up and wait 2.5 minutes before taking the next gate. And actually, it's less on a scepter. It's about a minute and 15 or 20 on a interceptor.
But if
yeah.
you got a drag bubble or something on the gate and you don't know it's there, you're going to get dragged into that drag bubble.
Yeah. We
Correct.
talked about this at the start of the stream. You're gonna have to make the choice, or you're gonna have to know, or you're gonna have to warp to a safe spot near the gate, wait out your timer, hit the button.
So it's going to be
warp
2
and-
minutes per jump, basically, or a minute per jump.
Yeah.
I suspect that's going to change Delve a fair bit.
Will
It's
this
going to change a lot of things a fair bit.
Will
Not
this
just Delve.
hurt the Piranha fleets where they mass blob somebody with formerly interdiction nullified interceptors? Absolutely not. They'll jump the gate, activate the module, warp to their target, kill it. Doesn't change.
They'll
That
bounce
won't
around.
change.
Yeah, they'll bounce
then-
around the system so they can use the module again, and then
I don't like this change at all. I'm scratching my head just thinking why this change was necessary. As for
Keep working on
interdiction
that, Rich.
nullification on shuttles,
You'll get there.
Yeah,
interdiction nullification on shuttles, that's a good change. Warcore stabilizers, absolutely. This, poo poo.
What I've seen with regards to how this is kind of working is it seems to also be able to be giving sort of like bubble immunity to a lot of things that didn't previously have bubble immunity. I think that's probably the thing that a lot of people are kind of a little bit more concerned about than just acting as an active warp core stabilizer.
So you're saying like giving this immunity to all the Tech 1 frigates, like those industrial haulers we talked about, this kind of stuff?
Yeah, like you're looking at this kind of going, well, it's an interdiction nullification module. It's not just an active warp core stabilization module. So, you're giving bubble immunity to certain things that maybe didn't have bubble immunity initially.
What's happening? Are they introducing a new module?
Covert ops, like
Oh my
covert ops
God.
frigates didn't have bubble immunity initially, like now they do. I think I think neither blockade runners or deep space transports had bubble immunity, but deep space transports had the ability to use a jump drive, micro jump drive, right? so they could, you know, use that to be able to escape bubbles in order to warp off. But now with this, with having this module and being able to activate it, they have the capacity for bubble immunity. You know, this sort of thing. Like, you know, it's adding bubble immunity to ships that didn't used to have bubble immunity. Maybe that's a good thing to some degree. Maybe that's a bad thing to some degree. Like,
I said, oh my God, retro, because it's big changes. You should look them up on our Eve News channel, which is here, around here somewhere.
Yeah, that's a really, like, it does give this temporary bubble immunity, right? This isn't like any ship, like a nullification ship that was nullified before actually has lost that ability. So your interceptors and your strategic cruisers with the subsystem and your ships which never before could be bubble immune, certain ships can now be temporarily bubble immune.
it also adds bubble immunity to those interceptors that weren't bubble immune previously. And CCP did flip that kind of bubble immunity from, you know, combat interceptors to sort of fleet interceptors, and vice versa, sort of thing. But you know, having it as an active module, meaning it actually does take the place of a low slot module that could potentially be used as, say, for example, more damage or more agility or more ability to get off a gate before getting, you know, caught by a tackler. Like, I think that to some degree is a good change. I know that there's going to be people who are going to be annoyed by the fact that they have to wait around in a system before they can carry on, you know, traveling, because of having to wait down the cooldown before they can use the interdiction or nullification module again. Part of me kind of I understand and appreciate that people are kind of would feel mad and feel aggravated by that, because it's kind of, it's putting on travel time on something that they feel like they shouldn't have issue with. But the other kind of thing is, you know, it also adds a potential possibility for human error, which, you know, has always been the thing that has been eroded in Eve. And I'm glad to see that, like, CCP is kind of adding some aspect of human, or adding mechanics that allow human error to occur, because that's how we get big fights.
So I think that's a really good point when you're talking about the ships that have gained this ability. But I think when you're talking about ships like strategic cruisers with nullified subsystems or those interceptors, they used to be immune. I think, like, it's not just about making the choice between less damage or less tank and this new bubble immunity. It's like I'm okay with making an epitol wait 2.5 minutes per jump or a transport ship per jump, but if you're trying to hunt and catch and kill stuff that even cause a fight in the first place, it just got a lot harder.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And
But
Yeah, like the only issues I think people are complaining about are hunter side in this, right?
Yes, yeah. Like,
Right. It's
sorry, just Mac is dead right with, like, having that wiggle room for human error to lead to something. Because if you hit the timer wrong on this thing and you lose your bubble immunity before you hit the gate or before you get off the next gate, you're caught and killed. So there's a fight. I mean, it's a defender fight, not an attacker fight, but there's a fight.
I think the only kind of real thing about you know, something leading to a fight is maybe with regards to the strategic cruisers having, you know, the utilization of this. And I mean, it's one of those things where strategic cruisers always, you know, had the subsystems that are capable of doing it, so, you know, they had to be kind of grandfathered into this anyway. But like, if you're looking for a if you're looking for a fight with a blockade runner, or a fight with a covert ops frigate, or a fight with a luxury yacht, like,
those
you're
aren't
not getting
fights.
it. Those are just gangs.
Those,
Exactly.
yeah, those aren't fights.
Yeah, they're not fights, and you're definitely not getting them now. And if you're trying to catch a venture, good luck. You're never catching one.
There's a few
So
other.
see,
1 second. There's a few other things that we're looking at. Not to change the subject. We'll come right back to this, but new gates are going to be placed. Looks like there's going to be a gate to Stain. No joke.
Oh, so I mean, you might want to put a big spoiler alert here because this is big spoiler territory.
Yeah, but if it's in CC, it's okay with CCP to spoil. It turns out, I think.
No, I mean for
Well,
people who don't want to know the ending to
Alright,
the story
alright.
that hasn't come out yet.
all those orcas you've been seeing explode on the stream are the good people of Amar desperately trying to build that gate.
I'm only joking. Go on, please tell us about these gates because I'm very interested.
Well, here's the sad part: the Silk Road may not be the Silk Road anymore.
You're breaking my heart.
Mine too.
I love the Silk Road idea.
So the idea was that when Poshvin came in, it broke up the connection between Jita and Amar, two major trade hubs, and broke it into 47 jumps instead of 9. And that created a Silk Road of many, many, many jumps to get to the other market.
And also which took you through all the markets, right? It was
a parade through the markets, which meant you went through all the empires and you could stop at different markets, and we called that the Silk Road. Spod, but what have you found out about that?
So there is now going to be a 12 jump route between Jita and Amar, and it also is within about 15 of the Dixie from Jita, and in the mid to low 20s to get to Heck and Ren's, all from Jita using this new route.
That's just
okay, but it has low sec though, right?
Yeah, the caveat is there is a singular low sec system you have to pass through. Just one.
That's not a caveat for people high
Hauling.
seconds.
What-
That's basically a no go.
the poison pill, but what's the new ganking system to rule them all?
So the new spooky system is Isutaka.
Show us on the
Oh,
map.
wait, sorry, wrong one.
Show us on the game map.
Okay, yeah.
Isutaka.
Sorry, there is a
So
route
the-
between Jita and Amar currently, which is about 20-ish jumps, but it goes through one low sec, and so it's not used.
This is
Well,
good.
you heard it.
Isutaka is the new entry point, so that you would go from Jita to here, which would then take you directly to.
Oh my god, that is going to be
Yeah,
brutal.
I still don't think, even if it's like 12 jumps or so from Jita to Amar, like even if it contains a low sec system, like it's not going to be used. Like, as Abby said, like there's already a route that's like 20 that has a or a single low sec that isn't used. So like,
I tell you what,
You
though,
see,
Mac, I'll use that route in my deep space transport with my bubble immune low sec
Yeah,
module.
with
now.
your new.
Yeah,
you've got
maybe.
from
Yeah.
Jita, which is up here, straight down to here into this single.
It's low sec. You
system.
don't need a bubble module.
That Abazon. So
Well, I mean, it's not bubble immune, but like, yeah, you're gonna
Remember, nullification changes favor logistics, moving supplies around.
so
And
all
the
hands on
workforce
deck.
stabilizer.
So
I don't think the
all
warp
hands-
core stabilizer like actually defeats infinite points or high kind of points, high point or high scram kind of point modules like
Yeah,
a faction
probably
scram,
not.
for example.
You
Guys
can only-
underestimate how lazy people are and how much they'll go through that system.
You can only
Oh, yeah,
put one module on.
potentially.
It only goes up to 4, etc.
I don't think it's lazy, but it's it's risk reward. So Abazon, that is a low sec system. I guess all hands on deck to take control of it.
Yeah, Amazon. Oh my
You
god.
can see I'm only
Not
7
wanting-
jumps away from it in Amar.
Not wanting to be that guy, but like if you wanted to do spec on this, like I would speculate into faction scrams that have like more points, like a 3-point scram, for example.
I've already
Matt-
changed the market price of my faction scrams I'm selling.
Ten
Lateral,
jumps from
take a look at
Dodixie.
the public voice chat. I am curious if that is a mistake in CC or not. I'm curious with this, anybody who is in CCP watching, if frigates are meant to be able to have access to warp, to the
Yes.
nullification. They are?
Yeah,
CCP
there's-
Swift
so-
pointed it out.
So, okay.
So there's some there are definitely some some ship ship groupings that are missed from that seemingly missed from that nullification like list.
The frigate
Um,
escape bay is now terrifying.
Like
Ex-
frigates, there's frigates and was it frigates and cruisers?
Explain why
uh,
that frigate escape bay is
Frigates and
terrifying.
industrials in general.
Well, okay. So part of the risk of putting, a pod into a battleship, whether you're solo or you're in a fleet, right, is the risk losing it. Right. So now, if you have completely interdiction nullified ships in every frigate escape bay. Now it's usable in nullsec fights, where now you have these mass, amuleted fleets,
I mean, I
and
don't
they're
want to
safe.
be, I don't want to be that guy, but I have had frigates in battleship escape bays, and I have ejected into them once my battleship got blown up in a heavy tide. One of the things that I found when that happened to me, and I did sort of bug report it. I have no idea whether the bug report has been, seen and acted upon or whatever. But none of my modules were online when I was auto jumped into my frigate and launched out. And
Okay.
because none of them were online, I couldn't use any of them.
Well,
And I couldn't online any of them either.
To do the more biased one, right? Because I'm in wormhole space. Now the defenders of any given eviction are basically unpotable, because 90% of eviction defense fleets are battleships, right? So now you have a frigate escape bay, and you can't pot out the defenders. So
until they run out of battleships.
There's a
okay, that is generally not an issue in any major engagement.
But this also opens the market for people to have more expensive pods, right?
Yeah. So just like there used to not be a frigate escape bay, and they added the frigate escape bay, and they specifically disallowed interdiction nullified ships before. Right, those are strictly off limits. It was Tech 1 frigates only, something or faction like an Astero, but not interdictors, not covert op ships. Now with this change, they've given every Tech 1 frigate the ability to access this module, and so when they get out and when the battleship is blown up and you're in your frigate, you can just hit this button, warp off. They've kind of undone a specific rule they laid out in the past, which is kind of weird.
But it's still for that
I wonder what
one warp, right? After that, you're still on that 150-second delay.
But you've gotten
in
away.
a wormhole, in a wormhole, you've gotten away. You'll probably dock up, reship into a new battleship with your new nullified frigate, and go back in the fight.
I mean, maybe CCP are trying to enhance more tackle gameplay. Like, you can't just have
But you can make insta warping ships come out of the bay.
It's actually worse than that for wormholes, because I think it gives it option for alphas to now have frigate escape bays. So you can put alpha tunes into everyone's citadels going around that's in your defense fleet. And if they need to be evicted, you just have everyone log into alpha tunes, jump in their praxis, shoot, oh, warp off, jump in the next praxis, shoot. Like, you don't even need a defense hole to get your tunes in now to defend, because you just have alpha tunes sitting in all the different stations that you need them to be in.
Having alpha fleets is a secondary concern. That already sort of exists, but yeah, now they're reusable.
You only need one alpha tone. You just got as many practices as you can fit in there.
But I mean, like, in normal space, this is like just promoting more fights, at least, right? This is opening the door.
I do want
to have more.
I do want to point out. I do want to point out that, like, just having the system doesn't mean that you're untackleable. Like, it just means that, like, you have a warp core stabilizer and your bubble immune. Like, if you get hard tackled by a scram, then
okay, but
you ain't going anywhere.
getting to that point is the issue.
Yeah,
because if you're dying, right, in a battleship, you just start spamming warp, and as soon as you pop out, you warp. You could get an insta warping magnate into a frigate escape bay with the nullification.
And also, for a fight to happen, you need to catch a target and cause a fight. And I think this really, really hurts hunters. It hurts attackers. It hurts hunters. It hurts Blops fleets. There's a lot of very niche gameplay. It's not very niche. It's just something you don't often think about and run into. And this really does hurt those people out there trying to cause content. This really gives a benefit to the defenders.
I think pushing this to all industrials and all frigates is a bit much. Personally,
I agree.
Yeah, I think actually I would be okay with industrials, because like in terms of the epitals, if they want people to go to low sec more and do PI or something, I mean, I'm kind of okay with that, if because the negatives are so bad, you might actually catch them on the gate of the other side. But all frigates is crazy.
But what's the benefit of having the nullification on all that stuff for low sec? You
Someone
can't
might
bubble
actually
anything in low sec.
I mean, the advantage is people that were like one character based don't necessarily need to have a scout now, right? Because it gives people a bit more confidence in trying to attempt these runs. And if that it causes more gameplay in a certain area, let's say the low sec to null sec gates.
Yeah, low sec to null sec is fine, but it doesn't affect low sec because there's no bubbles in
Yeah,
low sec anyway.
Sorry,
that's my
yeah,
point.
I
So,
meant
at least it's increased, like it's giving the opportunity to those who are more solo like to have more confidence in exploring and delivering stuff. I mean, if that brings more content out into a little bit of that null sec low sec borderline, then is that a bad thing?
Yeah, just
yeah.
think
Sorry,
about
when I
like
said low sec, I meant like null sec and wormholes.
All right, my bad.
Yeah, need another coffee.
well, one of the things I was thinking about is like it gives more options for somebody who knows what they're doing with this to potentially get away. But if you're low IQ using this, right, like you're still going to get caught. Like, if you're just like if you're aligning to
Spamming
a
the
gate
F1 button
and you're
and
spamming and you get tackled and you're like, oh crap, I'm tackled, spam button, warp off the gate kind of thing. Yeah, fair enough, you've got away from there. But if you land on that gate, even at 0, jump through it, and the guy who's following you sees where you've gone to, warps to the gate, and if he's in a tackle ship, has probably got to that gate before you. He'll just tackle you on the other side because you wouldn't have the ability to be able to like use that module again because of the cooldown.
I don't think you can balance ships though around the lowest common denominator. I think that's a faulty premise.
No, you don't balance it around the lowest common denominator, but you do have to take into account that situation,
right? Because I mean, the perfect example is like filaments, right? Catching a group who's trying to filament somewhere is impossible if they do it right.
Yeah, like even if you get them cornered, like they're just going to filament out into a random bit of space.
Yeah. So is that balanced? That you no matter what you do, if a group is say undocking out of their structure, they can land at a safe and yeet. There's nothing you can do about it, even if you are a perfect scanner, have an insta-warping scepter with a smart bomb, they can still get away.
I mean, even a soloer
balanced?
can do that. Like
even
a solo, even a solo like target that's being hunted can do that if they have like a, if they have a filament in their bay.
As soon as you hit each grid with them, you drop any structure like an MTU or anything to start anchoring that.
But if
or
no,
stay getting
I'm
out
saying,
for that.
But because they can activate it instantly, they can activate the filament before you activate. A smart bomb is actually a faster way to stop it, right? Smart bomb instantly stops it because it gives them a red timer. So even if you scan them down perfectly and warp your scepter towards them, they can still get away.
Yeah, that's my problem with that stuff.
Yeah, so you can't balance it around the lowest common denominator. You can't say, oh, filaments are balanced because if you forget to set your safety to the right thing, that won't get them away. You can't. I don't think you can balance around that, and I don't think you can balance the nullification around people that make mistakes going to gates, because those people are still probably going to die regardless.
True. I mean, but then again, I personally, I've never thought that filaments were balanced anyway. Like, they're a lot of people consider them to be a quality of life improvement. I think a lot of hunters think it's not, but I don't know.
Elements is a interesting bag of things because if you know how to use them very well, you can evade a lot of stuff. You can jump out of wormholes, go into Poshfin, come out of Poshfin. There's so much comfort. However, the other thing is, as someone that's gone around PvPing in small gang, I cannot waste 30, 40 jumps trying to find people. It's just mind bending.
And every one of those jumps with your hunter has now been doubled in time.
Yes, yeah. I would love to see a bonus to the Tech Tree Cruiser subsystem, the nullification subsystem that reduces this to like 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 20 seconds, even 30 seconds, something reasonable and manageable. Other than that, maybe the interdictor needs to be lowered as well. But I think this is just like, again, I like the warp core changes. I like the idea that they've added some of these to things like industrials. Maybe people will use them. I don't know, but
Well, it
I
seems
just
like
think this.
the stuff that makes things get away from you don't like, and things that makes things harder for you to get to you don't like.
Is there a potential conversation here about player agency?
Well, in what
what?
way?
Like in terms of I'm just going off a comment in from the stream chat, sort of, if you do everything in your power to be able to, like, every trick in the book, every single thing, like, you play perfectly, right? Should you not have the player agency to be able to get yourself out of a situation?
Yes, but I think Abby's point is that now the hunter doesn't have any ability to catch. Between I see the comment I think you're talking about, perfect hunter, perfect defender. I don't think the hunter has the advantage there. The defender has the advantage in every
Yes, yeah.
situation already, so it's just making it worse.
Yeah, I think for hunters, this is a big stick with no carrot, and for defenders, this is a big carrot with very little stick.
What I would say is perfect defenders aren't nearly as or typically aren't nearly as well practiced and honed at their craft than perfect
and
hunters.
neither are hunters. I mean, no hunter's perfect. I'm shit, but I can't get better unless I can catch and kill and hunt. And if all I ever catch is nothing, I'll never get better.
Mac, this goes back to the earlier discussion about whether or not you can balance something around your lowest common denominator. You have to assume that everything being perfect, what is the result? If everything being perfect, the defender always gets away no matter what, is that balanced? Because right now, between intel channels, between having just like a scout on gate, having local, like
Near
you can get away.
Well, they need to nerf those info channels.
Abby, you may say
the problem is if
How do you
you're
maintain
saying
that?
that, everybody needs to have perfect concentration for that to happen, and we know humans don't have perfect concentration.
okay,
We don't. If we're
I'll give
doing
you a rebuttal to
rafting
this.
for an hour, you're going to miss intel.
I'll give you a rebuttal
but
to this.
if you are ratting with a bubbled system on both sides, then
no null block is going to allow that because it impedes all travel for other things. People who want to do PI are going to
dead end
versus
system.
you for
Dead
that.
end system. So dead end
Even
systems are
those
just
are not going to be allowed.
unhuntable.
No, I'd be sorry, Jan. Like, I mean, they have jump gates, so they can bubble both gates and just jump gate, Ansible jump gate in and out. They don't even have to take the bubbles.
Yep, like systems.
Yeah,
you
okay.
still
for ages.
those sort of systems are still are still traversable without having to go through bubbles. As long as you have an entry point via a wormhole, for example. And
but those
yeah,
systems
I know that there are people who will say like, oh well, those people in there will just roll those
and they
sorts
do.
of things. You don't, yeah, and they do, but also new wormholes do come in, and people do push new wormholes in by traversing into them and that kind of stuff. And there are also those people there who won't for whatever reason. Like I know I've been in null set groups who have
again, you are making arguments on the lowest
sort of
common denominator. You're making arguments on the lowest common denominator, right? Because if a ratter wants to be in perfect safety, he is unhuntable.
The problem is they're not going to bubble camp that end system because the dynamic bounty system modifier will make it that it's so trash the rat there you don't want to, because it's too
but
safe.
You're perfectly safe.
You're perfectly safe, but you're making like a fifth of the money you're making somewhere else. So
it doesn't matter, Janjan.
Nobody's going to do that.
Janjan, it doesn't matter. People are ratting in systems with as low as 20%. dynamic bounty systems. It really doesn't matter as long as they're still making money. And yes,
Yeah.
what this essentially means is if they bubble both sides of the gate and they have near two, and believe me, the amount of people ratting who are looking at near two, I'm one person hunting. Now, Abby may say he's a bad hunter. I'm gonna put myself up. I'm gonna put my pride on the line and say I'm an excellent hunter. I can do things in under 3 clicks most of the time. This would change my reaction, my time to hunt somebody. That window I have from something like 10 seconds or so to more than 60 seconds. So for me to get through that gate is now about 75 seconds if we factor in the whole nullification thing. To deal with the nullification thing, it is a pain in the ass. I don't like it at all.
And God forbid,
Okay, so
God forbid they have a
run us through
scout
that.
in that in that system to the dead end system. Like as soon as you see someone at local there, you just warp out. Like
Run us through that, Rich, if you will.
Okay. So I
how does it go from 6 seconds to 60 seconds?
Okay, so how I usually do things is when I see somebody's bobbled one side of the gate or both sides of the gates, the first thing that comes to my mind is somebody's got a secret. Let's go. So I jump to the next gate. As soon as I enter the system, I have a limited amount of time. If there is a scout there, my window is even shorter. I have a limited amount of time to get into that system and start hitting D-scan. If they're off D-scan, I either have to warp to a Celestial or I have to shotgun and get lucky. In this case, during any moment of these times, they can start warping off. By the time I enter, it's over. So let's say they're on D-scan. I switch to figure out the range that they're at 14, 10, 5, 1. I switch to 5%, and then I start hitting the most likely anomalies they're in. All of that, I should be able to do that in under 5 clicks. And in most cases, I should be able to achieve this in around 10 seconds if it's just one system. If I have to jump 2, it may take 15. However, with this new nullification changes, for them to bubble both sides of the system, if I hit that gate unnullified, I have to burn all the way to the gate, then go through, then I can hit the interdiction nullified and start getting to work. If I do hit the interdiction nullified and go to that gate,
but you're
I
ganking.
jump
You're
through.
not getting a PvP fight.
Tackling things starts a PvP
what
fight.
I'm saying is like, I was like, you could be in the, you could have walked to a perch spot on that gate and seen that there was a bubble there. You could have not. You could have
okay, but
specifically.
but if you activate the nullification going in, you can't activate the nullification going out. So you can't catch the person on the other side if you land on the gate directly and jump into the system they're ratting in. Then you have no nullification.
So I walk to a perch.
It's just an issue with regards to if both sides are bubbled.
Yes. So and like that's not even including now it takes you twice as long to lock it once you do get on grid.
Yep.
That too.
All right. I am going to interrupt for a second because I want to show you that we had an interview where we talked about this with CCP. I'm not going to show you the interview now, but I'll just show you a clip. Without volume. You can
Somebody
tune in.
said there, fit 2 interdiction nullifiers. You can't. You can only fit
Hold on,
one.
Abby. Hold on, Abby. I'm doing a plug. Hold on. I just want to say, if you want to see this interview with CCP, tune in on Sunday. It'll be a segment on our regular Sunday weekend report. And you'll be able to see the full, like 45-minute to an hour interview with CCP Emerald there on the left, CCP Paradox there on the right, and next to me is CCP Swift. And we go over these changes and other things that you'll find interesting later on. So make sure to join us this Sunday for the Talking in Stations weekend report. Okay, carry on.
Sorry, so CCP Paradox just said there in chat, this has been a great session, by the way. Hopefully, as they said, a lot of these numbers aren't set in stone. They are subject to change. And for those of us who have joined, we already said it, but the warp core stabilizer has been changed. You can only fit one of them on a ship now. They give you +3 strength. The interdiction nullifier module, this new module, you can only fit one. So you can't have two and cycle between them. Yeah, Rich, I think what you described is, in your hunting session, very good, very accurate. And I think unless you've done this kind of gameplay and you do it enough that you try and actually become a hunter, you don't realize how much this can impact and slow down a hunter. Whether you agree with that or not is, I guess, where you
Now,
come from.
I don't want to be the kind of guy who wants to play sort of amateur game developer, but if you're if the time that your ship is sort of nullified, like persisted through a session change, for example, like you jumped through a gate and then at the end of the gate you are still nullified for the remainder of the seconds that you were that your module activation remained. That might be an interesting thing.
Yeah, if the time for that to work, the time might have the duration of the module might have to be increased a little bit. It's a bit low right now. Certainly, that would be a bit of an improvement, I think, because that way you could at least get through both sides of a gate in one cycle, and then you have to wait for it to recharge before you hit the next gate or something.
And you'd have
The cycle
to.
time would be long enough for the ship's bonus for it because it's doubled.
And that's only assuming one side of the gate is bubbled.
No, I'm talking both.
No, the problem is we need to activate it before we enter.
No, that's what
hit a gate
Rich.
that's
That's
bubbled.
Rich. That's what I'm talking about. What I'm talking
Yeah.
about is you see both sides. You see one side of the gate. You expect that the other side of the gate is bubbled as well. At this particular moment in time, you would activate it to get to be able to warp to zero without getting stuck by the bubbles. Once you jump through, you would have to wait for the time to run down before you activate it again, so you can warp through the bubbles on the other side. What I'm saying is, if the timer or the sort of the buff, the timer that you have, like persists through that session change to the other side, it means that you would still be bubble immune for a small period of time after you get through to the other side.
How long of a warp am I dealing with? If it's too short of a warp,
It would just be for you to get out of the gate, off the gate.
That's exactly what I was going to say. So getting off the gate seems fine. The issue is if I'm in a system that's really big, like a really massive AU, and my ability to warp to the gate is also going to cut into that activation time.
It would mean
Yeah.
you would have to. It would mean you would have to land on a perch on the gate before you go through, because you'd land, activate, and then jump at the, and then do the short walk and then jump.
So
But that's
here's
empty time.
so here's a question. If you're in a system, right, and both the gate you just jumped in through and the gate you want to warp to are bubbled, if you activate the module once, do you get through both of those bubbles?
Currently, with the current game mechanics, yes, because
I
if you're
think so, yeah.
Yeah.
and if the
So-
warp is
so
long
no,
enough,
no. So
15
what I'm
seconds.
saying. No, what I'm saying is, I think when you go through a session change, as you generally tend to do when you jump from one system to another, like those things end, because you have the situations that kind of act the same way. If you're repairing a module, that interrupts and ends when you jump through a gate. If you're overheating something, that ends when you jump through and to a new system, that kind of thing. What I'm saying is, with Paradox in stream chat, like a potential way of helping with the situation that we were talking about with trying to catch somebody with in a system that's double bubbled, sort of the both sides of the gate. If this module's effects persist through a session change from one to another, then that would help. At the moment, it does not.
If it persisted through, we get into this interesting conundrum. If it's a very short gate warp, yes. If it's a long gate warp and you activate it, or you deal with a perch, if you activate it before warping, by the time you land, you're already in cooldown, and on the other side, you got to deal with the cooldown, and you're screwed. If you go to a perch, then activate it, and then go down, you might have a better window. But the whole warping to a perch thing, it's really not ideal, because we're already working on tight margins as it is. Not to mention the fitting of the warp core, the interdiction nullifier on an interceptor. I don't know, Abby, how you're a hunter, how tight is the fitting on your interceptor?
Oh, I mean, it's hair tight. Like,
Oren, do you hunt?
Yeah.
Well, how tight is the fitting on your interceptor?
I generally don't use an interceptor, and my T3 can fit it fine. Yeah, you have to make a few sacrifices for the T3, but it's not awful.
I'll let you in
What's
on
the
a
fitting
secret.
on the module? What's
I'll
the
let
fitting on the module?
I'll
Though?
let you on a secret. My stiletto, my cheap stiletto, has 0 fitting room for this. Nothing at all. My expensive malediction has, in terms of CPU and power, well, CPU I have decent amount. In power grid, I have 0.7 power grid. I cannot spare anything for this. So not only am I being screwed in terms of my window of opportunity, but my very hunting and my very ship and how I fly is out the window.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think for
sucking down
me-
a low slot.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
Spot, can you select the fitting option of the?
if you
intersection?
scroll in the public voice text, there's a picture up there of the fitting requirements for these modules.
Let me go. Let me get into game and I'll paste you.
46 CPU.
It's in public voice text.
Sure, I'll get into game and I'll show you one of my many interceptors.
Yeah, Rich, I think it'll be a case of like losing an implant maybe to get like a plus 3% implant to be able to use this thing.
Oh man, I don't like it at all. This is bad.
Yeah, I'm losing the nano off my malediction.
This thing about changes, or sorry, the active modules persisting through session changes, we looked into that, didn't we, Spot? Anybody remember?
Just to give people a perspective, like a malediction has 150 CPU, and this thing, like a Tech 2 of the interdiction nullifier, it takes 46. So almost 1/3 of the CPU is gone.
Persisting through session changes, did we covered that earlier, right?
Well, it doesn't right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
my malediction fit isn't nuked to oblivion because of this, but
Okay, Admiral, take a
I
look
get
at
no
my
nano.
stream.
All right, you're on screen.
Okay, this is my personal malediction. This malediction is pricey. This thing, I'd estimate it at well over 2 billion just for this malediction. My power grid is 0.5. My CPU is 3.2. I don't have enough to work with this. In addition, we have to keep in mind
no implants?
active. This is that's with implants. This thing does not use this. This thing uses high grade snakes. I do not have this. I cannot spare fitting implants for this. I fly this with high grade snakes, so I would have to. I can't throw away the multi-spectrum coating. I could throw away the damage control, but then that's massively hurting me. I don't think throwing away this damage control. 30 CPU, it wouldn't even help.
Yeah,
I would have to. I would have to change
I think you pull the
everything
plate.
about it.
Yeah,
I think you pull the plate.
Pull
Mine
the plate.
doesn't
This
have a
is
plate.
already. Oh my! No, not with a scepter this expensive. I don't want to start pulling plates. It gets into
Wow.
awkward territories.
Well, you lower your price, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
expensive
okay.
ship.
Yeah,
everyone primarily rich when you see him flying around in a malediction, guys. He's dropping fancy loot.
I mean, if
And
you
as for
4,400 cold.
Oh, this is without implants. I go around 6,000 cold with implants. Now with my stiletto, I could drop the guns, but oh no, I can't drop the guns. Because I am screwed on the CPU. So if I start dropping, say, the microaccelerated power core, I don't have the power grid. If I drop the damage control, 45 CPU. Is that enough to fit one? Just
46.
about 46. I can't even fit that. I cannot even fit that. This is a. Oh, I'm even saving on CPU with the Caldari Navy Warp Disruptor. So with a T2 point, I can't even fit the thing. So I have to drop the NOS as well, and I just will be able to fit it.
Sorry,
Now,
CPU, you could fit the compact one for 32. The other ones is 38 for the other metas and 46 for the Tech 2. So you could fit the compact.
Okay. Now, just stay with me, everybody. Keep in mind, for me to be able to use this, I need how much power capacitor? I need about 150.
Yeah, correct.
Stiletto right there. Meta micro warp drive 234. We're gonna do some. Let me pull up my calculator.
Okay.
234 divided by 150. I need. Actually, no. 150 divided by 234. That's the other way around. I need 64% of my capacitor ready at all times just to be able to use it. My excess capacitor recharge rate is 14%. I cannot afford to use it if I have my modules running.
Yeah,
If I
but
just have
see,
the point on, I cannot afford to use a warp interdiction module in combat.
this module also nerfs your targeting range and your scan res bonus. So using out an interceptor as hunter, I don't think people will be doing that, would they?
Yeah, I'm looking at the lock time on an interceptor right now with this module.
I mean, what? Because I mean, you as a hunter, do you really want 50% negation on your scan res? Your lockability is fundamental to your activities, right?
Yes, definitely. And I'll show you just how important it is to me. This, now, look away, everyone, look away, because this isn't for you. I'm going to show you some top secret fits that were some of them were given to me by Hydra Reloaded. Now the secret is yours. But
Oh no, Rich exposing secrets, bro.
some of these fittings were given to me by a friend of mine. But I personally fit. I like to fit signal lamps when I'm hunting, just to get that extra lock range. With my signal lamp interceptor, this is a cheap one. I have no fitting whatsoever. I cannot drop the NOS.
What are you at?
I
1300? Is that right? 1300?
1300 on the cheap one. I also fly with Geno's implants to hunt as well. So if I'm hunting with something like this, with Geno's, I have no fitting space. 1400 scan res, which actually allows me to catch pods reliably. So
I wish you
these
spoke to me about a couple of months ago. I had a Cormac SIBO for you. If you
these essentially these changes to the interdiction nullification, it's not ideal because not only does the module cost quite a lot of capacitor just to even be able to run, they take up precious fitting space which you cannot spare.
Oh, I didn't even think about the capacitor. Oh,
yeah,
dear.
234
quick,
capacitor.
So I can just jump in real quick. Shuttles are apparently getting passive nullification. Yes, that is something being added to shuttles from the stream, and a lot of people saying, Rich, that your fits are super bling, and they thought they would never agree with you, but this is really fucked up, and they agree with you now.
Okay, this is not a super bling one. This
Rainy
fit
Captain Rose
is
as well.
okay.
I have a Tech 2 malediction fit that fits it, no problem, but you don't have a nano anymore.
Okay, I'll switch it to a not so bling fit. So screw the guns. I don't usually use the guns. I just like potting people. So right now, this is T2 NOS, point scram, micro warp drive, that type of thing. This is a 60 million fit, cheap. This, with all of my skills, 52 million skill points, I am cap stable. However, I am skirting on 6.9% capacitor recharge rate. I cannot afford to, if I have just even the point and micro warp drive on, 11% excess cap rate. I cannot afford the cap to even activate that module. I cannot afford 150 cap with this
I
setup
suppose you'd
running.
get insta-neuted with any medium or heavy newt, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, if I am pointed and neuted, if I am neuted in a bubble, I am screwed.
Yeah, sorry, I was kind of exposing the tactic.
If you're at less than half cap, you can't use this.
Not even less than half cap, less than 60% cap. I can't even, about 63% cap. I can't use this. That's a lot of capacitor.
So how much cap does it consume with one round of micro warp drive?
I'm using the cold gas. I could technically downgrade. My cold gas uses 28 with consideration of my skills. It could go down, I think, one more, and then we'll have to consider. Yeah.
If you went to a restrained, it will probably up your the sort of resource usage.
Restrained. Okay, so
that's more penalty to cap itself.
I could do a compact. I'm even less cap stable. I could do quad lift restrained. I'm even less cap stable. I could go bling, and now people are going to yell at me. Even with bling, I don't have the capacitor recharge rate. I could let's make it all bling. Let's show off what we could do potentially.
But what if this is the idea, Rich? That that's
but
impossible to do. What you're trying to do now?
you know, what's the
Use case.
explain to me the situation that you'd want to be using the warcore stabilizer while you're also in combat in a ship like that that's specifically designed to tackle rather than
He,
just evade tackle.
he's talking
reason
about
why
the nullification, not the warp core stabs.
the nullification. The reason why I want to be nullified while I'm in combat is because an interceptor pilot is meant to be in the thick of things. He is meant to be able to get in and out very quickly. He's meant to be mobile, and most importantly, he is meant to be able to do his job in thick and thin, especially in
Yeah,
situations like bubble.
Yeah, but
yeah, this
perhaps
is
the
true,
memo.
but so
Perhaps,
so is an interdictor.
So Rich, as far as the fitting is concerned, I don't 100% agree with you because I just threw a fit in public voice text that is perfectly serviceable fit. I mean, using up half your cap to run this thing is a bit excessive.
Yeah,
I'll tell you what. I will. This fit right now, moderately expensive, is the lowest capacitor usage and the highest capacitor capacity you can get in an interceptor. This is all storyline.
You got to remember is you are only activating this module to get off of the gates. You're activating it and then you're never touching it again in most cases. So I don't agree.
I don't think so.
The fitting part. I agree at how it affects you as a pilot. I don't agree with the fitting. The fitting is you sacrifice a low slot, which just sucks, but
yeah. So
it could be worse.
Let's take a second to reset just to catch people up.
I see
Hold
what
on,
you
Rich.
mean.
Hold on, Rich. Hold on.
Okay.
Abby, do you want to review what we're talking about here? Or do you want me to?
Yeah, so for anyone who's just joining us, we'll drop the link to the new announcement in the chat. They have completely changed how nullification, or they're going to completely change basically how nullification and the warp core stabilizer module works. So nullification, which was like a trait that was on ships, through a roll bonus, has now been changed and it's become an active module. And likewise, warp core stabilizers, which were a module, have now been changed and they've become active modules. These new active modules have passive negative effects that will always have a negative effect on your ship. And then when you activate the module, you will get your warp core stabilizer plus 3 strength bonus, or your bubble immunity from the bubble immune interdiction nullification module. Sorry.
So, yeah, keep going.
So with this, we have added the ability to fit this bubble immune, the interdiction nullification module, on new classes of ships that could never fit them before. So things like frigates, Tech 1 frigates, industrial ships, so haulers, sigils, badgers, miasmoses like the Galente line, and also the Noctis, funnily enough. Stealth bombers can now fit the interdiction nullification module. Deep space transports, blockade runners, interceptors, both flavor of interceptors, combat and attack, I think, is it? And strategic cruisers, obviously. So anything that could be interdiction nullification before can access this module, and now a whole host of new ships can use it as well. But it comes with quite a strong negative effect.
I think one of the major takeaways is that if you're a hunter, this is going to be harder for you because you're going to have people. It's going to be harder to sneak up on people. But if you're moving supplies around, this actually may not be a big change for you. But it's switching what used to be a passive way of life, meaning your ship just did the thing without you doing anything, to an active way of life, which means you have to activate a module to get the same effect you had before, to be able to pass through or to be untangled as you're moving through space without people tackling you, that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that seems to be the general consensus here. Defensive players, people on the defense, or as you said, industrial haulers. Maybe you want to take an epithal through dangerous space, hauling some PI. Those guys got a buff. And for some of us in here, particularly when we're talking about aggressive gameplay, whether that's actively hunting with a small ship or a big ship or whatever, being able to move around and that versatility and that nimbleness that is so valuable to overcoming things like intel channels and being in someone else's space certainly just got a bit more harder.
How hard is it for you currently if somebody starts hunting you to basically evade them and get out with in the current state of things?
Not at all.
Yeah,
Super
it's not
easy,
hard
And
at all.
man.
perhaps that's the problem because you have all the advantages in both sides of hunting and getting away.
No, as a hunter, sorry, you don't have any advantage. You don't really have any advantages as a hunter. When you're hunting, you are you're putting everything on the line. You are going off and into someone else's space. I mean, they have the benefit is always stacked for the defense.
For me,
And go on.
for me, the hunting is the entire part. The kill is it's nothing. Anybody can kill. Hunting is where everything it all rests on the line. One mistake, 1 second too late, one click to that you didn't do properly, and all of your efforts are nothing.
And also miss warps, right? Because you could have something on a D scan that seems like it's in the right place, and you can miss a warp because you've lost more time.
Absolutely. And like as a hunter, the amount of times I have landed on grid as something has just warped away from grid is so many times. So even a slight delay does increase this. But also we have Orion here, who was also discussing some of the how these changes would affect wormholes. So for instance, if you are attackers and you're trying to evict or attack someone in a wormhole, they will be able to use battleships, which will have a frigate escape bay. These frigates will now be able to be bubble immune and warp core stabilizers, so it'll be very, very hard to uh, pod people out of the wormhole or reduce those numbers. Basically, in a wormhole, the defensive fleet now just got a massive force multiplier, and for want of a better word, they could almost bring endless amounts of people. Right, Orion? You
And
don't
it,
want to.
in insta warping too. You can get the frigate escape base ship to be insta warping.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you had 10 guys in a wormhole and you bring 10 guys in to kill them, those 10 guys that are in the defensive fleet can just keep reshipping in from their structure, and it really does give them a huge force multiplier.
So
Yeah,
this
I just want to add to we said before, like some people ask Rich why he needs to activate the nullifier when he activate when the points are activated while his micro warp drive is also activated. The reason it may not more for hunting, but for big battles. So let's say if I'm fighting like a 400-man fight right, on both sides, and let's say someone, let's say the FC called a primary, and the interceptor wants to secure the tackle on that ship, and that's when you need to have your points activated while you have your micro warp drive activated, and by then you're often going to get primaried, and most likely there'll be bubbles around you everywhere in a big fight. So that's when you want to, if you want to save your ship, you have to warp away while being bubbled around. So that's when it's really important to have the nullifier activate, be able to activate that nullifier at the same time you have all your mods activated on your ship beforehand.
When an FC will during a battle, when the FC realizes that the enemy may need to reposition or they're breaking, he will call out something like tackle, go down and get points or get bubbles. When they call out for some people to get points, they want people who are usually following along with the main fleet anchored up to take combat warps or warp down to that position using Rex and such and get points. In this case, they will have their micro warp drives running, they'll have their mods running, they'll have most likely have lower cap. And now because of this, they cannot do that. They cannot activate the interdiction module. Somebody in the chat suggested that I fit a cap booster to my interceptor. Well, luckily with the stiletto I can. I can only do this with the stiletto and crow. The Ares and the malediction cannot afford the mid slots. Now I can do this. That looks all fine and dandy. However, right here, 2814. That's how much health I have. Let me check how much one volley of my caracal does. So 2,814. That's a massive, massive reduction. I can, with the application of my rapid lights, I can kill this in, well, as little as probably about 3 volleys of rapid lights, and that's really quick. So, do I want to play an expensive scepter or any scepter at all, which has that low of a health?
And also on that note, like if you're in big combat, when your FC call out someone you want to point to, you often warp to the reg and then start approaching that person, right? If they're, let's say, in a Lucaria fleet, right? You have to remember your signature radius is very high. So that means if you have less tank, that means even a glades from one set of 1400, you'll be dead, right? Before you could tank like say a glaze or like a smash shot, like depends on your health. But right now you can't even take a single hit and you'll be dead.
You can't anyway because the 1% chance to hit you at all times is just an instant death for all scepters.
Yeah,
Because
but
the wrecking shot
that's
will
taking
kill.
the chance. You're, let's say you're not going to get a 1% all the time, right? You have to take a luck into consideration as well in some cases.
To give you an idea of the health difference, with a cap booster, I've got 2814 effective health. Without the cap booster, I get 4877, and I get the additional bonus, all that shield I get. So, fitting a cap booster, any kind of counter to deal with this is pretty much forget about it. This to make a scepter interdiction nullified after this patch, you're really going to be scraping at the barrel for the tiniest of fitting opportunities.
Again, I don't think the fitting is the issue. Losing a low slot's a big one, right? That gives you in a lot of different ways. But as far as the raw CPU, I'm sorry, I'm not seeing what you are. It's not giving any of my fits drastically that I can't like adjust around it.
The CPU is not my concern. My concern is the power grid.
My concern is the cap actually on that module for
The cap's a big one too.
Yeah, I'm not too concerned about the CPU and the power grid. I mean, it sucks, Rich. You're gonna have to completely rechange your fits, and the metas around interceptors will probably change. But I really think the whatchamacallit, the cap usage on these ships with this module just means that you're going to have a very rare opportunity to use it, or you're going to be micromanaging your cap boosters and the target's cooldown. Although the cooldown with this module, so this module has a 2.5 minute cooldown, right? That is unbonused. When you're flying it on an interceptor, it'll be bonused down to 75 seconds, which in a fight is a long time.
Absolutely. When it comes to flying an interceptor, I'd say 75 seconds is an eternity. For me to have to hold on to something for that long is an eternity. This is just a cheap scepter, T2.22 bug warp drive running. My capacitor will be at 44%. I can't activate the module.
So the innate cloak once you jump through a gate is 60 seconds. So you're 15 seconds over. Once you jump through, you will become visible before you can use your device again.
Yeah, and that's not including time it takes to warp to the thing, jumping it. Yeah, so someone again asking there, aren't scepters already nullified? No, that's being removed, and it is being moved over to these active modules. Now, can we just real quick, can we get on to just the warp core stabilizer discussion? And just to remind people who have joined us, warp core stabilizers used to be a passive module. You could fit as many warp core stabilizers as you have low slots, giving you that many warp core strength, right? So for those who don't know, like you start off with 0, and at 0 you can warp. If you have 0 warp core strength, and then you put a warp core stabilizer on, you get +1, and then a point will take 1 off, and a scram will take 2 off, right? So with these new warp core stabilizers, the maximum bonus is +3, and you can only fit 1 of them. So you can only ever give yourself +3 warp core strength, and that means an attacker or someone trying to catch you only ever needs 2 scrams or a faction scram and a point, right? They only need 4 points to hold you. So how do we feel about that?
Seems fair. More low slots free for evasion on the T1 haulers. So you can actually fit some going into warp quickly and actually use those instead of being forced to use the DST and blockade runners.
I like these warp core stabilizer changes. I think it's going to change some things.
But there's another advantage because you have a cooldown. If they get away from you and there's no citadel in space, they are in a predicament if you can find out where they are cloaked. If you arrive at the same location as they do, even if they warp to a different range, because yeah, they can't use them again.
Yeah, I don't think there's as many problems with the warp core changes because it doesn't impede much. Right. It still lets you get away from most things. Right,
Yeah.
unless they have like 2 faction scrams.
Yeah, so before it was very much a passive ability in the sense that you had the warp core stabilizer strength all the time and you could just warp away. You didn't have to really pay attention. Now you don't have the warp core strength until you activate the module. That's when you get your +3. So if you're active gameplay, you're paying attention, someone lands on grid, you hit that button, you align out and warp out. But those negative effects are always present.
So basically, it means that if you have an Ishtar ratting now with 3 warp core staffs, you can use your 5 drones. After this change goes live, you can only use 3 heavy drones, effectively reducing your income by 40%. And because rats wrap, it's even less. It's even worse. I mean, you get even less money per hour.
I like this comment. Never moving blueprints again.
Yeah, just seen it. So someone's saying maybe this is going to force people to use cruisers and destroyers as more main tackles now. I mean, the interceptor's job is to get initial tackle and hold it. In most situations, I think this just makes getting that initial tackle harder and holding it harder for your destroyer or cruiser friends, your backup to come and help.
So it looks like the leopards bought out in Jita. That was triggered by Dr. Spod, who was advising that that was going to go up in price.
So,
dirty manipulator.
Now it's a 20 AU interceptor, so.
If we take a look here in regards to the drone megabit change, it is minus 50 flat. Somebody's made a mistake and said it's minus 50%. No, it's minus 50 flat. So
currently it's minus 50%. They need to fix that.
Wait, what?
I just had an Ishtar fit with the warp core stab, and it reduced the drone bay bandwidth to 62.5 instead of 75. So that's the current bug. I should be reporting that.
Okay, so the attributes are balked. It's minus. It reads minus 50 bit. It turns out it's minus 50%. So if it's minus 50%, yeah, it'll be 62.5. If it's minus 50 flat, Quick Math says it will be 75 bit, which is same as Vexor. Now, why does this matter? Elephant in the room is Vexors are very commonly used by bots to rat, and they very commonly fit warp core stabilizers on them to protect them. They can just
another very popular ship is the Gila, which also likes to get a warp core stab, which means that's totally useless. If it's 20 ambit.
Oh my god. And the Gila can be used by alpha accounts, can't it?
Yeah,
it can indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a huge nerf to the Gila.
So it really, I mean, If you think about it, that change seems to really be focused on your massively AFK gameplay. I mean, I'm not even talking about AFK ratting while watching a Netflix movie and maybe I have it on a different screen. This is like AFK ratting and you going to work for 8 hours. Or bots.
What change are you guys discussing right now?
Oh, really?
God, Billy.
I just got here, sorry.
We are discussing
Welcome,
nullification and warp core stabilizers, the new news announcement today.
Oh, I didn't actually see what was put out today, so that's fine.
Today,
Oh, boy.
just so you know, and you don't get into any NDA stickery, the nullification changes came out. Not all the details, but some. And I guess that includes the warp core stabilizers. And the shuttles are now the only innately nullified ship.
This is
Alpha
okay. I
and
can see
Redrum?
what my two Discord. One Discord is functional, the other is not. Anyways, yeah, it looks like most of the nullification stuff is there. It's gonna be fun, eh?
By the way, good time to plug Talking in Stations. This Sunday we have CCP. Paradox actually talks about these changes and more this Sunday. So check it out here at TIS.
What time is that? Plug the time.
Oh, you would trip me up, wouldn't you? It's 9 a.m. Pacific time, noon Eastern time in the United States. And I believe that is 1600? Yeah, 1600 UTC.
That's 1600 Eve time, guys. So make sure to check in on Sunday.
So you guys can see what ships they can be fitted to, too. Everything.
We can indeed, yep.
Tech 1 frigates. Hell yeah.
Does that include faction frigates?
Yes.
Yes. So you can indeed have a warp core stabilized cloaking Astero with interdiction nullified and, say, a pair of high-grade Asclepian implants inside of your Vindicator battleship. And once your Vindicator dies, you can indeed cloak, activate warp core stabilizer and interdiction nullified and attempt to warp off.
Now I have no reason not to fly a crystal pod in my Vargar out in nullsec. Thank you.
Just to,
How do you-
address a question that was in your chat, CSM did talk to CCP about this. We were tracking. I just was not tracking that it was being released this morning.
It's on CC now. It's not actually released.
Well, you know what I mean. It's
Yeah.
discussed or open to the public, kind of.
CCP's involvement is discussed with the interview with, CSM's involvement is discussed with CCP. So we covered that. So check that out Sunday.
Sunday, 9 a.m. PST, 1400 Eve time.
Do you have an interview with CCP?
Yeah, I interviewed Emerald and Paradox yesterday.
Oh,
And,
really?
Yeah, and they...
How long's the interview?
An hour. So it's a good one. Here, I'll show you some of it.
What time is it on?
1600 Eve time,
1600
Sunday.
Eve time.
It's twitch.tv/talking in stations.
Today?
Was that a forced segue?
No, Sunday.
Sunday. I think it's a bit late.
Oh, you're gonna make people wait until Sunday. Okay. Jeez, that's evil.
Well, yeah, it was easier for them to do it at that certain day and time, but
Well,
they
Sunday's
gave us
their
advance
day
time.
off.
Yeah, and it's usually
Oh, so it's not. It hasn't already happened and been recorded. It's
No, it has happened. It has been recorded, and it will be shown on Sunday.
Metal, if you check on the stream, I will show off a Astero, which can fit everything I've listed in preparation for the next change.
That's going to be my new frigate escape ship right there. Thank you, Thank you, Rich.
This right there has 38 power grid, so there's plenty of room for you to fit your interdiction nullified modification. Plenty of CPU to fit it, way plenty of capacitor, and it is with a line time of 1.73, and as a cloak.
Can you also fit the interdiction nullification on there?
Yes, you can.
Yep.
Okay. Seems good.
Totally not broken.
So we also need to find a way to put on.
Perhaps they should
combat
limit that you
prepared.
can't fit a frigate with an interdiction nullification system in a battleship. If they added that as a rule, it would be like it would fix everything.
I would actually be okay with the battleship offlining your warp core stabilizer and interdiction nullification module if you put it in.
Same.
Hey guys, let's at least try it before it has to get nerfed, right?
Sure.
It seems like you're new to Eve.
Sorry, I'll try to put up.
You're
Is that better?
doing a dual point if you're chasing any Expo Hunter now.
So what is the concern that people are going to do exploration with these?
No, that they're going
frigate
to
escape bay.
like if we use a rock fleet and basically have an have plus 5% damage pod for everything, and you can just get that to safety instantly because of the frigate you can use, and not risk any way in shape or form that pod.
And the added stress to and the added stress for hunters for getting their targets.
That laughter is telling, isn't it?
Like,
May I
yeah,
ask-
come on, guys. Like, oh yeah, we're every time my battle.
Basically, they want to be able to kill people while evicting people in wormhole space. That's basically their thing. Because now with this change, they can't. So the defenders will always be at max capacity to keep defending their space.
Yeah,
I think,
we were just
already
think-
just filamenting their orcas out. Like,
Oh yeah, that too.
there's so many niche mechanics around the eviction and non-eviction of wormholers. Like, trying to balance anything within that in mind is going to be all but impossible.
Yeah, but now it's catching anyone who has a pod in a battleship, as you just can't. Now.
Yeah, it's not like if you are nullsec gate camping and smart bombing, and someone wants to try and like kill that smart bombing fleet, forget about it. They're just going to insta warp off into the structure they have in system and dock. Specifically, so people are asking, why are we arguing about the frigate escape bay? It's called an escape bay. You should be able to escape. Before these changes, you could not fit an interceptor into the frigate escape bay. If you wanted to use the frigate escape bay, you could only use a Tech 1 frigate up to an Astero, like some faction frigates, but you would not be able to be bubble immune. Now, because we can put this interdiction nullification module on a Tech 1 frigate and a cloak and the warp core stabilizer, it makes getting away and catching those frigates all but nigh impossible. Like before, they had a rule specifically to not allow interdiction nullified ships into these frigate escape bays. Now, any ship that goes into these escape bays can be interdiction nullified.
So it's a buff for surviving evictions?
It's a buff for surviving any combat involving a battleship.
But the difference is it's not a insta warp, is it? Because if you had a scepter and a frigate escape bay previously,
couldn't.
You're still quiet, Retro.
I know. Hear me out. The point I'm trying to make is you just go right click warp. Now you have to press a button, then warp, right?
You didn't get the part where you couldn't fit an interceptor in there.
I understand that. My point now is if you have a frigate that's in a battleship, it's not an insta warp thing still, is it?
Yes, it
well,
is.
in
Press
that
a
case,
button
you'll just
and warp off, right?
You'll put it on F1 and spam that as you're clicking warp with your mouse or something. It's not going to like that delay to hit the button isn't going to make you catchable. I don't think anyway.
Insta warping is still sub 2 seconds. So someone, it's locking someone is gated behind that 2 seconds, right? So long as you're going.
Well, no, that's not true either. There's true insta locking, and then there's like real insta locking, right? Or
yeah, but like 90% of the time insta locking.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, what's the difference between a true insta lock and a?
So true insta lockers are people who can get you on the singular server tick. So for a normal person, like a standard insta lock is 2 seconds, 2 server ticks. So under 2 second align time, you're good. A true insta-locker will get you under 2 seconds. So you see these in like super like hyper scan resolution buffed interceptors, but usually it's much more server based, aka somebody who is sitting right next to the server in London or something like that. Like who Rebecca has one of them. There's usually one of them in like the 1DQ camp. Usually the T5Z camp might have one of them. Like they're a lot more less common, but they are something to still like respect out there. That makes sense.
Okay,
Some of
so
the
basically people that have extremely low ping rate to the actual CCP servers.
extremely low
Yeah.
ping, extremely high scan resolution, like
And
multiple, remote sensor boosters kind of thing.
And one more thing, and they need some in each time you are in a system, every person in the system has a sort of, I guess, personal ID or something, which affects who. So if two people have the same ping, same scan resolution, that ID that the server assigned to them decides who locks first. So these people not only have those other two factors, but they also have an extremely high prioritized ID.
A true insta-locker is just, it's something that exists. It's like a, very, very small percentage of people, like, but it's something to be aware of and respected for mega gate camps.
So that's why it becomes more difficult, right? So anyone that has this module to the average player is highly
This module affects nothing with true insta-lockers. True insta-lockers would have caught these people regardless. Because for these people, they're going to have to decloak, press a module, and then initiate the warp. And at that point, they'll already be locked by a true insta-locker. If you are visible for 1 second, a true insta-locker will get you.
But you can activate the module while gate cloaked, so that negates that a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
I did not know that. That's interesting.
That's really. How do you feel about these changes? Since you are a CSM member,
I think they will provide new and interesting ways to maneuver around the galaxy.
and how do you think they'll affect people who fly an interceptor not as transport but for its intercepting function?
How do I think they will? What?
How do you feel they'll affect hunters?
Yeah, because the problem right now is if a gate is double bubbled on both sides of the gate, you can only choose one side of the gate to be nullified on. So if someone is ratting in a system and has a scout in the previous system, they will always have to have the interceptor burn out of one of the two bubbles in order to catch them.
So is your worry that hunters will be weaker or stronger?
Massively weaker.
Weaker.
From what?
So
Case of people
if you have
use
3 gates,
anchor
right?
bubbles to like bubble up both sides of a gate.
Yeah,
Usually your
perfect.
only answer to that was running an interceptor through or a nullified T3 that could skip the bubbles and hope that it could catch something and hold it long enough for the rest of your ships to gate through the bubbles.
Are
Now,
we
if
talking about one ship or are we talking about multiple ships now? Because that's a different situation.
One ship.
Okay, so if it's one ship and you're worried about getting through a gate camp, then you will scout the exit gate first in one manner or form. You are a hunter, so you probably have a cloak fitted as well, correct?
No, so the idea is you're trying to catch someone who's like ratting or something in a gate, say a dead end system, right? The gate is bubbled on both sides, right?
Yeah.
So now you only have the ability to nullify one way, which adds the full burn time.
That's you're you up to a minute delay, but that's not not always completely. But yeah, there's a couple second delay now before you can warp off.
Yeah, but you're not going to sit on the other side of the gate for 30 seconds waiting for your interdiction notification whilst they just
because you're in local for the full delay.
as soon as you're through the gate, you can't sit there for 60 seconds.
Yeah. So in the case you're describing where a hunter comes into system, so this is much more something I would define as like scouting than hunting, but
yeah.
It will make that harder, 100%.
I would argue that it's nigh impossible if the ratter is even remotely paying attention.
Well, then you can save your nullification pulse for the side in which you jump in.
Okay, but then they have one person scouting the other side, and they now have the full 60 seconds to.
Yeah, but if they saw you on the other side of the gate, they were already warped off, and you wouldn't have found them in anyway because you warped to the gate, right?
Yeah, but at least you had a
So-
chance because you had the hyperspatial scepter coming in and
So-
immediately jumping.
Okay, so let's be clear. You're saying that I am scouted in the system beforehand, and that your hyperspatial scepter is going to be able to get through the entire system, get into system, scout the belt, and this person isn't going to get away.
I'm saying,
And this is the situation I have to worry about.
There is a chance before. Now there is none because you.
Okay, so we went
60
from a
seconds on top of
2% chance to a 4% chance, right? Like,
No, you're doing it the wrong way.
Yeah, because like, okay, now you have to factor in that you've been on Intel channels for twice as long because you have to wait 60 seconds for every other bubble gate that you have to get through.
Sure.
Okay, so you're on Intel for a minute longer after every jump. Like, it nerfs hunters into oblivion.
So part of me kind of thinks that scepters have to have had it kind of good for a while. Like they like understand that there was a time when scepters didn't have nullification at all ever, right? And you had to burn through bubbles in order to get to gates and burn out of bubbles to get out, right? You have certain scepters that have 100% effectiveness on their micro warp drive speed when you overheat them. You with very cheap and capable scepter fits being able to hit 7-8K a second very easily overheated. If you utilize that to get through the first bubble camp, I mean, when you're going 8K, you can get through, large T2 bubbles set up on a gate fairly quickly. And when you consider that, when you consider maybe bouncing off a celestial as well, very quickly bouncing off a celestial, it doesn't take that long to be able to get through and then be able to activate your nullification module to be able to warp and get to your target.
Yeah, so you just have no chance to hunt with this. Like
your statement is so
oblivion.
Your statement is so exaggerative, it makes it pointless.
Yeah, but you can't get anywhere in any reasonable length of time if things are bubbled.
Oren, what you're trying to say right now is basically like when scepters didn't have nullification, no ship was ever caught and killed. That's just painfully not the case.
If someone is even moderately paying attention to anything, they won't get caught.
But that's true now. Like it doesn't change.
Okay, but this just makes it so you're nerfing something that was already nerfed into oblivion. So what is the point?
Let's talk about a bit more of a realistic real world example of this, which Oren can probably provide some additional context on. But particularly in some of the older Dronelands campaigns against renters there, they would guard their Rorquals and other things behind multiple gates of bubbles in order to give themselves enough time to not even just like warp off subcap riders, but to de-siege Rorquals and get out before Tackle could get there. And there are some video clips out there of like the amount of shenanigans that people needed to pull to try and catch those people, where you needed to get like a Cloaky Nully covert Sino into system, bridge in a covert fleet to hold them down, and then gate in actual DPS through all the gates. And being able to get hunters through multiple gates that are just T2 anchorable bubbled is a valuable tool when trying to deal with something like that.
Yeah, so you bubble multiple gates and suddenly your scepter, instead of getting from gate to gate in 10 seconds or less, gets it in 60 seconds. Like
so that's conflating the issue there, Oren, because like, I mean, are you gonna sit beside a gate for 60 seconds
If things are,
or like Oren, come on, like, or are you gonna basically, maybe burn 10 seconds at 8k a second and jump?
Scepters don't go 8k a second. Let's
They
check
go
combat
5K.
scepters.
The combat
If you
scepters
over,
will, and they can be into the
for-
External
if
Fire.
you overheat your, if there's certain scepters, and I understand that you guys have been using bubble immune scepters for quite some time, so you don't have this option available to you because they're available in the combat scepters. But now that you do have this capability with combat
How many
scepters
cycles can you
fitting
heat a
certain
micro
things.
warp drive? How many cycles
Before you
Not
burn
that
out,
combat
anyways,
scepter, before you burn out? How
4
many
to
cycles?
8 at best.
Average is
At
3.
best. Yeah.
So how many gates can you afford to overheat through to get
Like-
to your target? Is the question next, right?
Well, let's just see how far you get. Like, how far do you go? Even with the speed increase up to 8k a second, in the time that it takes for one cycle.
Might get you out of one bubble. Like I no,
One
this
T2
isn't.
bubble.
Okay, so now you've had the
T2
10
large
seconds.
bubble.
You've had the 10
So
seconds
you're through.
of your
So you're through.
You
So what you're
have the
saying is
10
you're
second,
through.
you have the 10 seconds of your micro warp drive time added on to the additional warp. If there's
Oh
only
no,
one,
so it's
if
10
there's
seconds.
only
You
one
a lot.
bubble,
You
if there's
you were
only one bubble on one side of the gate, because then if there's another bubble on the other side of the gate, that's another 10 seconds.
No, because you
Like,
no,
no.
it's not another 10 seconds. You can literally activate your was it nullification module, and you can go straight.
You have to do that
you can go
before
and,
you
go and
warp.
do that.
You have to
Okay,
do that before you warp.
I've got a question, McLeod. So you do this for the first gate, right? So if
Yeah.
if you're my target and you're one jump away from me, your concept works. I have no issue with it. Now with all the Intel systems, and if you're like, let's say 3 or 4 jumps, I'm not even talking about the AU of the systems yet. Let's say they're average. Let's say they're 50 AU, right? I would have to press the button for the first gate, then have to, let's say each and every one of these gates are bubbled. Where what used to take me 10, 20 seconds to get there, now will take me 30, 40 seconds, and it just buys more time to get.
So I totally understand where you're coming from, Retro, but what I was saying was I was countering the fact that Oren was complaining about the fact that like he's going to have to wait a full minute each time. All I was saying was that you don't have to wait a full minute each time. It would be like 10 to 20 seconds by burning through.
And
Because
that's
for some reason, now that scepters have bubble immunity when they used to not, like now burning through a bubble is a testament to basically the game being broken and not playable for some reason.
So
In
McLeod,
the days where
the
everyone and their
issue-
fucking mother is running Intel bots and Intel systems, that it's just not viable to move that slowly anymore.
Well, that's what also needs to be tackled by
Well,
CCP.
That's a shame, but that's not going to happen without the removal of local. So that's never going to happen.
local Intel channels, people on gates. It's so hard.
So
like,
the point is, McLeod, that the number of things
All I was saying,
the number of things
all
that
I
are
was
already
saying,
stacked against hunters was so immense that doing this kills it almost completely.
But why are they? If it's so,
all I
simple,
was saying,
What is
why
the
are-
blob? Okay,
all,
okay, fine.
all I
Not-
was
not
saying was
60
that
seconds,
your 60
40
seconds was
40
ridiculous.
Seconds, 40 seconds, fine.
Okay, so
That's
here's
still
the thing.
too long.
Thank you
made the
very
state-
much for ceding. Thank you very much for ceding to my argument.
That's not a point. That doesn't change anything, sir.
So the point you're making is that an additional 10 or 20 seconds per system, or an additional 40 or 50 seconds per couple systems, is going to change the dynamic between hunter and prey. And I would
Yes.
contest that maybe it will a very, very small fraction. But the vast majority of the time, and everybody here knows this, is that the people that are paying attention already get away anyways.
Billy, how many
Only
times?
time you
How many
What?
times have you landed on a ship as it warps away? How many
usually
times, as a hunter, have you landed on a ship as it warps away?
more than a few.
Now, 30
However-
seconds, that guy is definitely gone.
But the reality is, those guys who are warping away are more often than not only warping away because you just came into system, which means the intel delay, which you are worried about, doesn't play into that discussion. You came into system and then they started to warp away, right? Or it took them 10 seconds once you were in system, and then they decided to start warping. That's when you're landing, kind of thing. It's not the 20 or 30 seconds where they showed up in intel channels, because if you were already in intel channels and they already warped away, then there wouldn't even be this discussion. It's when they came into local, and the fact of the matter is, the in-local time doesn't change with this mechanic for hunters. And you keep saying hunters, and I want to use the word scouters or something different because it.
Scouters, hunters, same thing. I mean, Black
Well,
Ops people
hunters
call them
generally
hunters.
is much more referring to like Black Ops stuff, from what I've. But yeah,
It's even worse for them because they were already slow.
Yeah, it's kind of like if you want to refer to interceptors as scouts and hunters as Black Ops, I think it's worse for Black Ops hunters than it is for interceptors.
There's a very different discussion for those groups. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's really done a very bad number on their gameplay. Like, on the one hand, you're right. If people are paying attention, they should always get away. And you probably weren't going to catch that person anyway. But like, if you were going to catch them, and you catch someone, literally, and in the next 3 seconds he would have got away. This 10 or 20 second delay means that you won't catch him, and that means you're not going to get that. And it's okay. Some people might, oh, poor hunter doesn't get his kill, or poor crabber gets away, but it's just tough, I think. I can see both sides of it.
Let me be clear here. This isn't a situation where it's a perfect change and there are no negatives. I'm just saying the statement that extra 10 seconds means hunting is done forever, nobody will ever hunt again, is patently wrong, and it's so exaggerative that it just nullifies any.
It's
meaningful
exaggerative,
discussion.
but it's true fundamentally. Like, it is a nerf.
But it's not true fundamentally. That's what I mean by exaggerative. Like, it's not true fundamentally. It will increase the difficulty 100%.
Okay.
But
concept is it's already something that was nerfed into oblivion. It was already immensely difficult to begin with, and this just makes it harder.
Explain why it was nerfed into oblivion. Like,
I'm sorry, it wasn't nerfed. It's already massively difficult. Is my point. It wasn't nerfed by any change in particular. It's already massively difficult.
Explain that a little bit, because it's you're presuming that everybody knows what that means. What does it mean?
I mean, with the combination of Intel networks and local being what local is, if people don't want to be caught, it is massively difficult to try and do anything to force a fight.
Okay, so if you're tackling, right, you have to at least know where you're going as a journey. So you got a plan route on, let's say, Dotland or your in-game map, right? If it's one system, fine. Those guys may not have an intel channel and they're not paying attention. At the very least, most people, of anyone that's living in nullsec, would be said, guys, whatever you do, whenever someone comes into the system, be aligned, be ready to warp. Make sure you kill all tackle that's getting you from your whatever rats that you're fighting. Be aligned, get ready to warp. All it is a right-click warp, maybe 2.5 seconds, right? That's it. So, fat fingers, 3.5 seconds, right?
It just seems like such a weird change to do.
If you have to be a hunter, you have to not only know the area that you're going to after someone, consider the AU of each of the systems that you're going through to get to them, and then you got to consider bubbles, and then intel channels, and then even if you get into a target-rich area, you have to not only, once you've done all that, you have to descan maybe multiple sites, and then maybe find your target, then warp to him. If you're lucky, if you got him in, within your descan tool.
The thing is that's a lot of effort. People have already determined that if they're going after VNIs and subcap ratters, no one's putting the effort. You're just gonna shotgun and see what you can get, right? Yeah, you'll hit up descan and you'll just get a rough direction and make a guess because it's
exactly. So I'm just highlighting one scouting interceptor tackle. If you have more people, you'll probably increase your odds a hell of a lot. But if anyone else sees more than 5 scepters coming through a system, they're already docked up and gone for lunch.
So the question is, what was this intended to fix? And so supposedly what this was intended to fix is massive fleets of interceptors that could go anywhere, do anything, and do a bunch of damages to people, right? Wasn't that supposedly the reason this was fixed?
I think it's intended to be a bomber buff.
Not everything is a fix.
It's a massive bomber buff.
But not everything is a fix. It's an adjustment. It's an adjustment. I mean, we lived without nullification for a long time before nullification came around. It's not like this didn't happen before.
I don't think it's a fix for anything unless the fix is moving from more or less passive gameplay to more active gameplay, right? This is making
Yeah,
passive modules
exactly.
active. This is requiring interaction. You need to be at your computer playing the game properly, not just watching Netflix and keeping an eye on Intel channels or whatever.
But how does that affect it? How is that affected? Like, I don't understand.
I do ask CCP this question on Sunday. You'll find out how they answered.
Why wait for another 5 days?
I mean, I
can't
like,
wait.
I'm not saying CCP is stupid. All I'm saying is that like players over the long term of playing EVE generally have had a better understanding of the effects of nerfs and changes that CCP
Not
makes.
true. I
But
mean,
like,
100%
I mean,
true.
no, because I mean, it takes more people to figure out more niche plays that find more circumstances where things break. But overall, I don't think these guys go into things. CCP guys go into changes without a lot of thinking about it, and they think
Oh, yeah,
about
of
it all
course.
the time.
I would
Really,
like to point you to the Hick change last year, Matterall.
Describe
Yeah.
that, please, for viewers.
There's been a ton of changes CCP has not thought out like at all.
rolling
Well,
changes.
again, they think of it. They just may not think of every circumstance where something works or breaks.
Well,
It just
Right,
takes a
and
lot.
then
we
like a
covered
player,
But that's the point.
Tell me
the
about the
point
Hick
of a
change.
document can be written out like with completely trash changes. A player within like 5 minutes of the change can immediately come up with a problem with it. Like there's
Yeah,
there's
because
so many
that player
obvious
lives
things.
in that world, right? CCP can't live in all worlds, so
To be
that's
clear,
part of it.
Well, it's
when
not
it comes
something
to
that
just
one
about
player comes up, right? It's like hundreds of players think of it.
And it's like now it's the broken situation of the frigate escape bay. Like, how long did that take someone to figure out?
so let's be clear. There are problems that people can identify with every change that CCP makes, but there are also problems, and then there are critical problems. And there is a massive difference between what people think is a problem and what actually is a problem. The
Okay.
2% increase in difficulty for scouting or hunting, to me, doesn't strike me as a critical problem or a major issue. To you, it might feel like one, but the way I view things, it really isn't.
Okay, Billy,
when it comes to the frigate escape bay thing, I also look at that and I say, that's just not actually an issue. People aren't going to do it like that. It just doesn't work that way. And
Okay,
I just
Billy-
wish CCP would actually tell us like the intent behind changes, so we can know whether or not to call them stupid. They've been historically
They
pretty
will.
bad.
Well,
They
you
will
just
tell
said
you.
why you're not. They're not gonna tell you.
Billy, if they didn't consider that a problem beforehand, why would they have prevented interceptors from going into the frigate escape bay before?
Interceptors are a little different in the way they work.
Why?
Okay.
This Astero is more easily. You can get away easier in that Astero than you can in an interceptor.
We'll see.
The Astero warps just as quick and has warp core stab and interdiction nullified and cloak, covert ops cloak now.
Yeah, but you
Personally-
can't cloak next to your wreck because cloaking within 2.5 kilometers.
No, but
usually
you
you're
warp
not in
away.
range.
Like if you warp to a safe spot, you can cloak up and wait out your 2.5 minutes before your timers wear off, and then you can use
If
your
you're not
module
double.
again. No,
I'm curious,
no,
Billy,
no.
You described this as a perfect change. Is that
No, I don't describe it
Well,
like that.
so you said it
Whoa.
was a perfect fix earlier. We can get the
No,
we
I
get
didn't.
the
What?
playback.
You're gonna get him in trouble, Rich.
You
A
did say that.
perfect. I said
did not hear the
this
word
is not
perfect.
a perfect fix.
You said this is not.
You said something to the effect
of
of it being a net like a total positive change fix. You did
Okay,
say that.
go get the tape because it's a change. I said it could be. I don't even know what I said, but like,
What do you mean? Say what you mean now.
well, I don't know the context of what I said it in, so it's.
We heavily criticize this change as having many critical issues. To go based on the terms, hopefully we've given plenty of feedback from various different areas of Eve, and we've explained why we feel there's plenty of critical issues with these changes. Do you feel that these changes have many critical issues or critical issues at all?
I have yet to see a true critical issue, in my opinion.
So, to you,
Yes,
this is without critical issue. It is flawless in that aspect. It is perfect without critical issues.
You have to define critical issue anyway.
Like a critical issue is something that requires this must be changed, or there is a problem that is so foundational that it means the change cannot go through or fundamentally result in a like significant net negative to the game. That would be my kind of critical issue.
You would have to
Yeah,
define that part of it, right? So that's important.
Given adequate gameplay, you cannot kill the pod of a battleship now. You can't.
Bullshit.
What do you mean bullshit? That Astero can tank like 3 battleships worth of smart bombs and insta-warp. What do you mean bullshit?
You die in a battleship. I have an interceptor with an instalock sitting on your battleship. What happens?
It has to be a true insta-locker to do that.
Does it?
I'll look on Killboard to see if any
sub 2
frigates are
second
destroyed.
warp. Sub 2 second warp.
Yeah. Also, you have to be careful of the argument. Just because it can happen doesn't mean it's balanced, right? So people like die all the time and shit that they shouldn't die. Excuse me, but
like in theory, yes. Sometimes people have like weird delays once they're ejected, and they get caught. But that's not the.
Not in theory. In reality,
consistent.
almost every time somebody ejects from a frigate escape bay, there's a couple seconds of lag here and there. There's disorientation, etc. And you're not spamming warp as soon as you pop into the frigate escape bay.
You could be.
You could be right, but if there's a dictor bubble, guess what happens? You have to press a module now, right?
Yeah,
but
you can activate the module before you can activate the module and press warp in the exact same tick. You just spam F1 and pre-slot it to F1.
Yeah.
We were having this discussion earlier. Can you balance a game around the lowest common denominator? Can you balance a game around having server delays? Can you balance a game around any of those things? I don't think you can, because all
balance
things
around them, but you absolutely acknowledge that they're there.
Like, sure, but do you balance the mechanics around bugs that may or may not be there, or do you balance around the mechanics as they should be?
Like, you have to ask yourself a question: do you want ships that are rejected from battleships to potentially be uncatchable? Which mechanically, as it exists with these current changes, they are effectively uncatchable. You will never catch the pod. Like, there is zero way mechanically you do it unless you are relying on game lag or server lag or something like that, which shouldn't be relied on in game balancing situations anyway.
The scepter also needs to be already sitting at 0 on the battleship.
It will
within 10 or 15 kilometers, yeah.
Because you need to
Okay,
scram because of the warp core stab.
You need double scrams.
Rich Richmond, I'm going to go ahead and say I feel that these changes are critical issues to my gameplay. And
cool.
if anybody else agrees, feel free to speak up.
That's the one issue with undefined terms like that. Like, it's all subjective. It could mean anything to anybody.
Yes, exactly. It's subjective.
It kills blopsing. It affects it in a massively negative way. Right?
I also think it's a massive buff to bombers in a situation where bombers haven't really been fully utilized yet with fleet formations, like in a really good way yet. People haven't really fully utilized the benefits that it gives them, right? So we don't actually know how much stronger
it's a
bombers
nerf
are
to
now.
bombers because they get dragged into bubbles now because the T3C that's now interdiction nullified can't warp them to a relative position because of bubbles. They will get dragged in. Didn't you get this part?
You can warp. You can fleet warp with an interceptor. You can fleet warp with literally anything.
The point is, currently, if you have an interdiction nullified ship and you warp them to a position, right, 30 kilometers of a probe, you don't get dragged because the warp is initiated from an interdiction nullified ship. That's gone after this change. So if there's a bubble there, then they get dragged into that.
I mean,
unless the covert ops ships are not bubble.
Yeah, like, bad news for you. You could probably do it with it. You could probably do it with an Astero if you really felt like it, or just covert ops scanner.
Yeah, you need to have the module active, right? So you're not cloaked on grid at that point.
You can do either way. Like, this doesn't change fundamentally. Like, if you're FCing it, you can do it either way easily. Like, I don't understand the point.
But you need to be decloaked, and you can't do it all the time. So you can only do that warp every 75 seconds instead of like whenever you want.
You can only do a bombing run every couple of minutes.
Yeah, but if you need to reset, it's a 75-second delay.
Or you just have like a second alt who can also do fleet warps and fleet, or a third one, or as any pretty much bomber FC already runs like 3 or 4, like any good one. Like, this is such a non-issue that is so easily worked around.
But that FC is decloaked when he initiates that warp, right?
he can do it off. He can initiate a warp from off grid if he wanted to.
Are we
And then
going
be
to
cloaked by
catch
the
your
time he lands.
warp your fleet?
You can activate this module cloaked, Jen.
You can
Sorry,
plot
right.
out. You
Right.
can have a fleet formation where every single person in your fleet is perfectly spread out, and then just warp your FC to 0 on any probe scan you want, and everybody will be perfectly in line because 1, the FC is nullified, and 2, all the bombers are nullified.
So just real quick, this module is only activated if you have a gate cloak, like you jump gate, not if you have a covert ops cloak so far.
Was that how that works?
Yes, that's correct. So if I jump a gate, I can hit the module with my gate cloak and warp off. I don't have to align and then hit it. But if I'm just boating around a system in my Stratios or something with a covert ops cloak, you need to decloak. That won't work.
A lot of these concerns were brought up very similarly with the changes to fleet mechanics and how it's going to kill small gang play. I've noticed it hasn't killed small gang play, so maybe let's put a bit more of an open mind to this and see what happens before we go, oh no, this gameplay is just going to end.
Well, overall, like, thanks everybody for participating. We're at 2.5 hours. We'll go to 3 hours if you guys want, if you still have energy. But we want to listen to everybody's perspectives, so it's good they're bringing them. And obviously, people feel strongly about their gameplay and how this is going to impact it. But I think there's still some details that need to come out for everything to shake out. But go ahead.
Sorry, someone just said there in chat, at the minute, gate cloak prevents activating. Probably will change. Yes, this is a new, for want of a better word, piece of code they've added in the game. This module has an attribute that like no other module has, we could say. It might not be working 100% now. As we saw, there was some bugs with the 50% megabit drone reduction. Is that 50%? Is it 50 megabits? But CCP Paradox was in here earlier, and he confirmed that the being able to activate this module while holding a gate cloak is confirmed. That's confirmed behavior, right?
And that makes sense.
Yes, and it also makes sense that you would have to decloak in your Astero and turn off your covert ops cloak to activate this. So if you're warping to a ping that's 2,000 kilometers above the gate, you're going to have to decloak before you hit the bubble immune button, so the enemy or the guys camping that gate will be able to see you coming.
You can also do it off grid, right?
Well, no, if you do too far off grid, then yes, you could do it off grid and then initiate warp, but you probably want to be close but not too close.
No, the area where you land is determined when you initiate warp. So like it could be a 3000 AU warp, and if you had the capacity to do it, you initiate a warp from point A, you're going to land where you're going to land, even if the module cycles off, right?
Yes, yeah, but you...
So you have 20 seconds to hit the warp button. Not complete the warp, but hit the warp button, right?
Yes, it's 10 seconds or 12 seconds. It's 20 if it's bonused.
Yeah, so whatever the number is.
But yeah. So if I jump a gate and now I'm in a brand new system and I have no timers and I'm holding my gate cloak, I can hit this button and warp to the next gate, and I will go out of that bubble, and I should go through the next bubble on land at 0 on the gate, right?
Of course.
It'll be interesting to see if that's how it works, but I imagine that's how
they would have to they would have to fundamentally change how warp actually works for it to not work that way. Right?
Yeah.
Because once people initiate warp, you can throw up 10 bubbles on the gate that they're warping to, and not a single one of those bubbles are going to stop them because they're already going to land where they're going to land.
Yes, yeah. So once you... Here's the thing, if so I do that and I get through the second bubble and I land at 0 on that gate and I jump that gate, in the next system now I'm out of luck because my module is on cooldown, and at that point then I'm going to have to burn a bubble, and that's when you're potentially vulnerable.
How long is the decloak timer? How long is the decloak timer on the other side? That's like
1 minute. You can just chill and wait out. You can also warp to 0 at gate, hold your cloak for 10 seconds. If there's no one there, you just keep holding. Like, right. So for example, let's plot it out. Travel scepter is 60 seconds, right?
No,
So you
no, no. So let's just it's a minute. It's 2.5 minutes unbonused with a scepter. The cooldown time is 75 seconds.
Okay, 75 seconds. So let's plot it out, okay? You hit the button, right? It's a 12-second, it lasts for 12 seconds, right? So whether or not the cooldown starts when you press the button or the cooldown starts when the module cycles off, right?
It'll be when it cycles off.
Okay, so then you click warp to the gate, right? So you warp to the gate, right? That takes maybe 10, 20 seconds at the most. Before you click jump, you have 10 seconds of invulnerability, right?
Whoa, what?
That's it. Yeah, when you land out of warp, you have 10 seconds of invulnerability where you cannot get damaged, shot, or locked, or anything like that. So you spent 10 seconds in warp, probably minimum. You spent 10 seconds on this gate idling. That's 20 seconds. You jump into the gate. Oh, I have 60 more seconds of invulnerability. 80 seconds. You are set. You're done.
You're not.
You are free.
No, you're short.
Short by how much? 5 seconds?
5 to 10 seconds.
Yeah, these are the bare minimum times. First of all, it takes way more than 10 seconds to get from gate to gate unless you're going like a 20,000 kilometer warp, right? So if it's like an average of 10 AU, that's going to be 15 to 20 seconds, right? 10 seconds landing. You're easily, in almost every single system, going to have this module up by the time you're ready to use it again. Almost always.
Looks like
Does that make sense to everybody? Because if you activate the module, right, and does the module decloak you?
No. So
yeah, so you activate the module. You wait until there's 2 seconds left. You do it. So the 75 seconds counts. You easily have enough time for.
No, so
this isn't even debatable at this point. You have so much time. If you do it right, you will never get caught. Travel scepters are still immune.
Yeah. Yes, travel scepters are still good in the majority of cases. That is true.
Pretty much all cases. Even in I would be hard pressed for you not to be able to drag it out in like a 20,000 kilometer warp, right? It's so close even there. It's just, yeah, this does not affect travel scepters if you have a brain.
Yeah, it just takes a full 60 seconds before you can warp between gates. So
all it is piss travel scepter people off because now they actually have to use their brain to travel, which who wants to constantly use their brain when they're traveling? Literally nobody. Literally nobody. Right. Yeah. So all it does is make the lives of an Eve player who is using a travel scepter, which is not like the top 1%. These are like the average normal Eve players. All it does is make their lives more annoying. And the only travel scepters you're going to kill from this mechanic are new players and people who don't want to use their brain.
Yes, sir. The people who want to shut off their brain are just going to use shuttles because now shuttles have that passive nullification.
Yeah, that's true, but shuttles are also far weaker. And
true.
That's the one issue with shuttles.
We're joined by
30k esque. So
I'm sorry.
We're joined by. Go Abby, and then I'll go.
No, I just wanted to go back to your math. You're quite right, but you're also a little bit wrong in the sense that like 10 seconds maximum coming out of warp. I mean, I think it's more like 5 or 6, right? Is it exactly 10?
It does take 2 or 3 seconds for you to even get off grid in the first place and land on grid, right?
Okay, no, I'm like, yeah, but I mean, when you said when you come out of warp, you're immune for 10 seconds.
Correct. You are immune for 10 seconds. I've exploited that thing. I didn't know that extensively.
This whole time?
I have been blown up within 10 seconds of coming out of warp. So I think it might be
activate a module. Did you?
No. I think it might be more like 6 seconds, maybe.
No, it is exactly 10 seconds. I've extensively tested that and abused it. Extensively. Yes, it is exactly 10 seconds. 10 server ticks.
Okay, so we click warp. I just think rather like when you did your math, you made it seem like this module's always going to be up. I don't think this module's always going to be up unless it's a really long warp. I think you will have a situation where you like someone gate camping the other side of the gate might have 5 or 10 seconds to catch you as you're waiting out the cooldown.
Let me go over it again. Okay? Let me reiterate it.
No. We don't need to reiterate it.
Because you're wrong. Because you're completely wrong. I did the math here for everybody to hear, right?
Hold on a second. Are we talking invulnerability? Hold on a second, please. Are you talking invulnerability here? Because smart bombs blow people up when they land all the time.
Full invulnerability. You don't take damage.
How does a smart bomb
You can't
kill
get
you
locked.
when you landed a gate?
Because
AoE
you're not
is
landed. Because hold on, because you're not landed yet. You are in warp. You can die in warp. In fact, you can die halfway through.
I
So
know.
for
I've done
example,
that too.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can die in the middle of a 40 AU warp. You can die at the 20 AU point to smart bombs waiting at that one tick you pass through. This happens. I do this all the time, right? The trick is once you're landed, you're invulnerable. And this is something that everybody who smart bombs and gates knows, right? Anybody who's ever done this notices that if you do it late, even if the interceptor is there for like 5 to 10 seconds afterwards, you can't blow them up with the smart bombs, even if they're in range.
All right, Globby. I didn't know that. So you're invulnerable for 10 seconds after you come out of warp. That's interesting. I didn't know that. I do want to say Olmeca Gold is here. That's what I wanted to say earlier, in case he wants to jump in.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hey, Olmeca.
I would say one ship that's now broken is the Crow. The Crow cannot get a sub 2-second warp and have this fitting because it's only got one low slot or 2 low slots.
Okay, I'm curious now, Globby. What is okay? So if it's too short of a warp, you should be able to always be interdiction nullified. If it's too long of a warp, it'll come off cooldown, and you can hold invulnerability, exploit that. Then you're not vulnerable to at all. But what about the perfect in between, where by the time you warp, so you activate it to get out of a bubble, and by the time you land somewhere else, it's just the perfect point where it expires, it goes into cooldown, and you don't have enough time to hold the invuln and jump into the next system.
So in almost all circumstances, and probably even the worst case scenario as an interceptor, you are always going to have this module up if you're going from gate to gate, right? So for example, if the module takes 30 seconds, I don't know what the bonuses are. I haven't actually read the patch notes. I just skimmed through them, right? If the module takes 30 seconds for it to activate, but it doesn't drop your cloak, it doesn't matter, right? So you would just wait until the last 1 second right before the module wears off, and you would initiate warp to the gate or whatever 2 seconds left, right? To give you a little wiggle room, right? So what we're calculating now is we know that when you land on the other side of the gate, there's going to be a 60-second timer, okay? We know that there's going to be a 60-second timer. So we can take 60 seconds off of that 75 seconds, approximately, right? So are you going to be able to get through the entire system you're in under 15 seconds, knowing that you can also idle for 10 seconds on the gate you land on before jumping through? So basically, are we saying, can you warp from gate A to gate B in under 5 seconds? And the answer is unequivocally no. No, you cannot. There's probably maybe one system in all of Eve where it's a less than a 5 second warp.
I see.
If that.
I see what you mean, Globby. You please do check on the patch notes. So we have 75 seconds to work with the interceptor bonuses. If
It is plus 30 seconds because the 30 seconds it's active, then 75-second delay.
So that is the one thing you didn't bring into your calculations, Globby, is in order to do what you said, you would have had to activate the module while you're gate cloaked in one gate, right? And then you can activate it on the next one, but that's not chainable.
It is chainable if there isn't anyone there to stop you, and if there isn't a bubble there, right? So you can keep this process going forever until you see that there's somebody waiting there to catch you, and then you would initiate this chain of events, right? Does that make sense to you?
No,
because you will always have the module up when you need it to be up. It's just if you are going to be caught or there's somebody waiting there, you just wouldn't warp straight to the next gate. You would warp off to a celestial or something else, but you will have the module up, right? So you only need to break the chain if there was someone actively there trying to catch you, right? It makes you uncatchable. All it does is it add more annoyance to travel scepters.
So what you just said is true. Is you have to warp off to a celestial at some point. So you can't just go gate to gate to gate.
Yeah, only if they're trying to catch
you. Yeah. So you can't.
Suppose all that is true, and you have it up whenever you need. I feel like you're arguing that that's a bad thing because.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's a wonderful thing. I think it should actually be easier.
Let Olmeca finish his comment, and then you can jump in, Globby.
I mean, no, but if I misunderstood, you can correct me because I told you were saying it just adds additional human factor into the situation where maybe it's unnecessary. Did you argue that it's a bad thing that we have to click now to travel?
Mainly two things. One, I don't think it's useful to add annoyance to the game just for the sake of annoyance, because in reality nothing changes other than the fact that some players are going to be careless and die, because it's so much brain power that you have to use to be able to get to this type of gameplay, or like new players or people who don't know any better are not going to do it accurately. And I don't think making a system that only
Yeah.
punishes them is a good system in the first place. I
So
think
maybe this is the difference between. Sorry, I'm cutting, but I'm not going to speak a lot. But maybe this is the difference between your thinking and maybe CCP's thinking, or maybe I support the other side as well. It's just that sometimes they have to introduce like the human factor into the situation. So where if you mess up, you die. If you don't mess up, you don't. You can see that as an annoyance, but on the other side, they can see that as something that's makes Eve cruel but fair and generates kill mails. And sometimes people mess up, and this I see this exactly like or similar to the Cyano changes. For example, previously you just had to click a button, and now you have to keep a recon, and then the recon might die, so you have to
I
farm it and so on
understand,
and so forth. So it creates that human factor that humans can make mistakes, and then that generates a kill mail. And
I totally understand, yeah.
that's perhaps a good way to generate more kill mails, because whenever you die, if it's your mistake, then you'll feel like it's fairer compared to a case where it's just impossible to use a travel scepter chain by system by system. So if they made it impossible to use a travel scepter, at least chain the nullification, then maybe that would have been, I don't know, maybe too much for them.
I just think it's the worst of both situations. One, the players who know what they're doing or have been written a guide by one of the nullsec blocks, which is going to happen immediately on how to risk-free travel, right? It's the worst of both situations because one, it's not going to cause any hardship on the basis of like intelligent players, and two, this quote-unquote skill gap it adds to the game. Yeah, sure, it adds a human element, but it's not actually hard to do. In fact, it's actually super easy to do. It's as simple as activate the module, wait until there's only a couple seconds left, warp to the gate, and jump through. And then
Yeah, but
there's
sometimes
another
it's
thing.
better. Sometimes it's better to, for example, one of the things you're familiar with is multiboxability of things, right? Of activities, and sometimes if mining was as convenient as you're describing, then we would be able to multibox like a lot of mining ships. Maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe it's already a situation with the barges anyway. Maybe we should make it less multiboxable. So whenever you add clicks, for example, I recently looked at PI, and I noticed there's a lot of clicks that it's actually you cannot like maintain a 300 character PI empire, because it's just you even if you spend 40 hours a week. So people say PI is a lot of clicks and a lot of inconvenience. But then at the other side, if the clicks didn't exist, then there would be no point in like in doing PI, because some person like me would maintain that huge an empire of PI
Well, I feel
characters. And
you.
similarly, like whenever because Eve fundamentally is a very basic, very basic game, because it's very old, right? So mechanics can't always be super interesting to engage with. What can they do? If they keep that passive, it even increases the multiboxability and the edge cases where people abuse the stuff, or maybe it's not an abuse, it's skill. I don't know. I'm a multiboxer as well, but
Well,
so
I totally
can
understand
feel.
where you're coming from, and I totally
Yeah.
agree. Any kind of gameplay, even as a huge multi-boxer, any kind of gameplay that not punishes
Minecraft
multi-boxing,
come
but
to battle it
rewards
out.
non-multi-boxing
4
is
teams left
generally
in that.
Globby, I'm not convinced on your.
Pardon.
I'm not convinced on your theoretical thesis on how.
Okay, I'll show
you're completely
It
invulnerable.
works because there's another thing you need to know. If you deactivate the module the second you're in warp, the cycle of the 75 seconds starts.
I'm not convinced
Well, that's probably a
because
bug.
I'm not convinced because if as soon as you're in a case where you are forced to jump a gate and you have 60, we'll go with say 61, 62 seconds left on the cooldown timer, you are vulnerable. So as soon as you're on the other side of the gate, and the amount of time you have until the cooldown goes is greater than 61, you are vulnerable. And I'm not convinced that it is impossible to achieve that, because you said you didn't check the patch notes, but I'll let you know the numbers now. For Tech 2 Warp Course, sorry, not the Interdiction Nullifier, you will get 30 seconds worth of duration.
What I just
and-
said, Rich, is if you
Yes.
press F1, as soon as you're in warp, the 75 seconds start.
Okay, that's fine. You can also wait until the end of the natural module before you warp off, right? So for example, I have a diagram I just drew in Microsoft Paint, okay? I will run you through what each of these three categories are. This large 60-second segment right here, all this is the gate cloak, right? From when you jump in. This is 60 seconds off your timer, or 58 seconds if you want to be hard on time or whatever, right? This orange here is the 10 seconds of invulnerability you get on landing. Let's just say 8 if you want to be safe, of you being able to run down your timer, right? So this 5 to 9 seconds here is all the time you have to waste that aren't dictated by these two hard barriers, right? So basically, if you can look at a system and it isn't like an exact 20,000 AU warp, if it's like 10 AU, you can easily burn these 5 to 9 seconds and be 100% safe on the other side. Like,
you haven't included the activation time of the module.
Okay, like I said, the activation time of the module, right, can easily be countered by warping at the last second that the module is there, right? So if you want, this is where I try to account for it in these numbers. But let's add another 2 seconds.
Your argument is that you are perfectly safe in a chainable way. This is not a chainable way.
You are perfectly safe as long as no one's trying to fight you, right? Because it only becomes an issue. Okay, so this is how you would operate it. When you're not being caught, you're just waiting out the entire time every time, right? So you can keep doing it. This basically, when you jump into a system when there's somebody there, you are not guaranteed to warp to the next gate and jump through and also get away if there's somebody on the other gate, right? What you would do is if there's someone trying to catch you on the current gate you just jumped into, what you do is you warp off to another celestial and wait for your cooldown timer, right? Because you can chain it forever, you just can't chain it if you ran away from someone.
Yeah. So
make sense?
yeah, it makes perfect sense. So if I was to want to chain this interdiction nullification, I'm going to want to burn, let's say 5 to 9. Let's just call it 10 seconds. Every time I jump a gate, I wait 10 seconds, and then I can start this process. And that will work as I'm traveling across nullsec, up until the point I jump into a system and I suspect there's a gate camp on the out gate. I judge by local, I'm using my intel tools or whatever, right? Okay, there's a gate camp on that out gate. Now, I could burn through them, but the fear is going to be a saber on the other side. So as long as I waste 15 or 20 seconds in the system I'm in, bouncing off a couple of celestials or maybe even a safe spot, then I can burn through that outgate gate camp and make it through both sides. Obviously, there is room for human error there, and that room for human error is where I will get caught and killed. But for a purely travel scepter point of view, you're not going to be clicking warp to gate, warp to gate, warp to gate and be safe. That will not have you safe. But being somewhat situationally aware and waiting 10 seconds will make it relatively safe. And then when you suspect combat, killing 20 seconds bouncing between a couple of celestials is what Globby was trying to show there, correct?
Yeah, basically you can do it forever until someone's trying to catch you, and then you are safe getting through that camp, and then you have to wait because you're not guaranteed getting to the next camp safely.
Yeah, and you're waiting 20 seconds, 30 seconds maybe at most if you want to be super safe bouncing in that system, and then you go again and you do the same thing for, let's say, 5 or 6 systems if they're really trying to camp you in, and then you're back to almost gating it, because you're not actually gating it unless it's, well, you are gating it if it's a really long warp, right? So there's only some situations with very short systems where you would actually have to be waiting out those 10 seconds on the other side.
Yeah, like I said, all it is annoying for players. You can still move in complete safety. It's just so annoying to have to time it every single time. You just can't click warp 2, warp 2, warp 2, go, warp 2, go. nobody likes traveling in Eve. Nobody likes traveling 50 plus jumps just to be able to, because they accidentally deleted a clone or they need to get to new deployment or they're leaving from high sec to null sec. They're going to see that 50 jumps and they're already not looking forward to doing it. And now that you have to make them pay attention intensely at every single gate that they go through for timing, just simply timing, it's just going to drive people insane for no actual mechanical benefit other than getting idiots and new players killed. That's the only benefit. Or lazy people killed. Not that that's a bad thing. It's just like your mechanics are so mind-numbingly boring that people literally can't be arsed to actually play the game. So
Yeah, do you think these are critical issues or things that make it, like critically? Oh God, why?
no, of course not. People are just going to quit because they don't want to travel 50 jumps as a new player moving out to nullsec.
I think players quitting is a critical issue.
It depends on how many. One player quits, who cares? 10,000 players quit every single year because of Vortex. That's another complete issue.
You don't think new players can use a shuttle?
I think new players can use a shuttle. I think new players can use a shuttle just fine. I'm just saying the nerf to travel interceptors, if your argument is just use a shuttle, I think it's weird.
Why?
Because might as well just make interceptors not be able to freely move in the first place. Make it so interceptors can't be completely safe, and then have shuttles be the method of travel, right?
Hey, hold up. I need my introduction nullified interceptors. How else am I going to hunt?
Yeah, well, so the main point I was making,
they were doing that.
That's just the point I was making. This is like the worst of both worlds. One, you didn't really change anything fundamentally about how the interceptors worked other than making it waste more time and making it more annoying for people. And you didn't actually make people die in them or make them really killable. It's just annoyingness for annoyingness sake.
All right,
and
you
it
know
just
what?
gets
I
new
can
players
accept that.
killed.
We're going to wrap
I
this
can
up soon, so let's get our last thoughts out on this stuff.
CCP didn't bother to think about it. I literally
They
woke up
did
an hour
think
ago.
about it. Every time you come on with an edge case to say that CCP didn't think about it, I think they can't think for 10,000 people. So maybe they missed some things.
Or in the majority of cases, they did think about it and they just said, "That's not like, yeah,
We'll
that
disappoint that
sucks."
guy. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we can't solve the problem for every possible niche case. Like some niche cases will take a hit in every different patch. It's like, oh, you remember when people were fixing Hot Titans? They're like, but what about all the Titan pilots? It's like, guess what? Titan pilots are getting shafted. Like,
I'm not saying that this is like a one
and I'm
person
not
winning,
trying
one
to
person losing.
No, and I'm not trying to make that statement either. But what I'm saying is that in almost all of these situations, somebody somewhere is going to lose in some minor way, right?
Well, it's not even about winning or losing, in my opinion. It's just that like
It's not the point I'm trying to make. Sorry.
And that's fine. It's just like the intent. I don't understand what the intent was here. It seems like all the 4 or 5.
The intent to me is pretty clear. The game is becoming, in general, and I've said this before, more active gameplay choices rewarded as opposed to passive powers. I think a lot of things are moving in that direction. This just seems like it's one more thing.
So let me ask you the follow-up question. Do you think that the way they implemented this change with regards to interceptors and only interceptors is a good thing?
I don't have an opinion. If I do, it's a mixed opinion because it depends on who I listen to. There's a lot of smart people that have figured things out that I don't know. My feeling is the overall direction of the game is rewarding gameplay as opposed to innate powers. And that I think is probably a good thing.
It's a good goal. It's just not in this situation what's actually happening in an effective way. I think just adding boredom and monotonous clicking and paying attention in a factor that doesn't really affect actual gameplay, I don't necessarily think that it's like a good change to make, especially when you could have just simply done away with travel interceptors and just had shuttles be the method of travel.
This is bigger than scepters, right? It's like
Yeah.
whenever the pitch like this hits, it's as Will said, it's always a cost benefit analysis, and sometimes benefits are like 20% over the costs. Sometimes some people get really nerfed. For example, in the industry changes are very controversial. I think CCP does it for like long-term benefits, but it's gonna happen. The benefits are gonna happen very long term. Meanwhile, everyone is angry, right? So sometimes a lot of people are unhappy, and in this case, not a lot of people, but some people will be unhappy, and maybe there will be some monotonous
and
clicking
really
and everything.
unhappy.
But overall, it's a cost benefit analysis, and you cannot do that without taking into account DSTs, tech trees, and the greater goals of CCP, like making the game more active and less passive, and so on and so forth. Overall, for all the ships that is affected, I think they're reaching their goal, or the change actually helps their goal of making the game more active. And
Right, the patch might, but the individual changes definitely might not. Right, I don't think the interceptor change is good, but I definitely think the DST and Blockade Runner nullification is a good idea.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know, there was a time where these things couldn't travel with any nullification. Only T3s had nullification. So it was, you know, it might have been an experiment. They tried to say interceptors can get past barriers in order to catch people to create gameplay. And maybe that time is over. Maybe that experiment is over. I see this as going back to what we had with a little bit more finesse to what they were trying to do in the first place, which is create more gameplay with people being able to catch things.
Initially,
but you don't need to catch anybody anymore because you have the ESS where you can just ring the bell and say like, show up for a fight, or we kill, or we steal your stuff. So you don't need to catch the Vatra anymore. You just go to the ESS.
Well, yeah,
maybe that's why I came here for, because I was listening to some of the worries about blow-ups and hunting and so on and so forth. Remember, like there are individual changes, and there is a general direction CCP wants to take this game toward, and you know, hunting is so intertwined with everything. First of all, ecosystem, right? So whenever they dim the rewards, there'll be less targets, and then you won't even have to worry about nullification anymore because there's nothing at the other side of the bubble. Whenever they maybe like, okay, here, this is one patch that the hunters lost, but ESS was another patch that created a lot of content for them. And maybe CCP, if CCP keeps this direction, then they'll probably someday apply it to anomalies where it will require more active gameplay. Maybe sometime they'll apply this logic to local, where it will Intel requires more active gameplay and so on and so forth. And overall, if you trust in a direction, just don't be disheartened by one change, because I think the direction of making the gameplay more active actually benefits hunting.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not arguing against that at all. Like I can totally be in favor for the direction they're doing, but saying that an individual
I
change
didn't
is
say
stupid,
that
right?
as a response to you or any of your arguments.
I agree. Yeah.
All right.
I
Well,
was just,
I hope
good. We're all in agreement. Let's wrap it up and end there.
I hope we can hope this stream and we here have provided the feedback that CCP wasn't able to get elsewhere.
Speaking of feedback, Rich, I tell you where we're all going to get a lot of feedback, and that's this Sunday, 6 o'clock Eve time, Talking in Stations. We got that interview. It's 9 a.m. PST for you weird Americans getting up early in the morning. 1600 Eve time, guys. We have exclusive talk with CCP about this change and possibly other changes. I don't know. Matterall?
Yeah, CCP Paradox, CCP Emerald. Paradox actually is Team Telos and Team Axiom, I believe. So that's the ecosystem team, and also the balance changes. So he was great to have on here. He gave a bunch of good information on what we're talking about right now and other things. There's more. And we had CCP Paradox, who is the brand manager, talking about EVE Online and some of the wider considerations about the quadrant. So this is an interview about the quadrant, and you'll see that on Sunday as a segment to the usual Sunday show.
That's Sunday, the 16th of May at 1600 Eve time, is it?
That's right.
Fascinating. Can't wait.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. This was a raw reaction stream for 3 hours on the eve of, not the eve, actually. Yeah, I guess these changes aren't in, but the announcement of changes to nullification and also warp core stabilizers and how things are becoming active choices as opposed to passive innate choices to ships. Thanks, everybody, for participating, and you guys for watching. Appreciate it. We'll see you later on today for more Talking in Stations.